This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And here we are on October the 17th, although it's still the 16th where my guest is. But October the, yep, 17th here, we're approaching 2 a.m. But I'm a night owl, I love working overnights, but I'm off tonight. And folks, I have a guest I've been familiar with for a long time. I've been on his podcast and earlier this year, and now I'm having him on mine. He's the host of Splat From the Past. Here we have Tommy Throwback Kovac. How do you do, Tommy?
Hey Greg, what's up? I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. You live in, correct me if I'm wrong, San Francisco, right?
I'm born and raised in San Francisco. I live in Redding, California.
What's it like there right now? Because I always hear people in California complain about being too cold. They don't know cold.
Yeah,
Because I haven't been in California, but I understand that when Canadians get off that plane and they're wearing shirts and shorts,
mhm.
you guys really don't get it.
No, we right now the heat has been very hot. It's going to be that way at least for 3 more weeks, and then we get our winter. And thank God it's going to be winter because we have fire season here and everything. I just hate that. It's awful. So yeah, California, it's pretty good weather-wise right now.
Yeah, I hate hearing about the fires, and I see a lot of posts on that. But our winters are cold, and we're generally colder here, but
Yeah,
we're not living in igloos. I know that is a consensus with Canadians, but we're really
yeah,
not living in igloos.
yeah.
But yeah, but nonetheless, great to have you on here, and we're both part of the whole podcast community. Something I think you came on, started podcasting what, 2017?
Exactly. May 15th, 2017.
My first podcast was with Tommy Wiseau, and that was April 23rd, 2015.
Right.
So, but I mean, I've been involved with the radio. I actually was not down to do my live show tonight. It's been a while since I've done my live show down there because,
Yeah.
yeah, it's I worked when you work overnights, and of course I did an interview this afternoon. It kind of throws your sleep off. So
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta rejuvenate. Plus, I'm a night owl like yourself. So
Mhm.
yeah, something peaceful about the night.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really quiet, really, at ease.
Hmm.
Totally.
Well, I always ask my guests to give their background. I know quite a bit about your background. I do know that you had a serious car accident,
Hmm.
and that's affected you, but you pulled forward. But would you like to discuss that in detail?
Absolutely. Well, let me tell you about, let me go back to the beginning of my background. I'm born and raised in San Mateo, California, which is the suburbs of San Francisco. And growing up, loved movies. I watched USA Up All Night. That's how I first found out about exploitation films. All the Jim Wynorski and Fred Olen Ray stuff, and Charlie Band, Empire films, all that stuff. When I interviewed Rhonda Shear back in June, God, that was surreal. I couldn't believe it. It was pretty amazing. And, I always wanted to be an actor and stuff, but the drama clubs in my schools were run by rich kids, so I wasn't very accepted in those. I did stage crew for a play my senior year, which was fantastic. Um, I wanted to move to Los Angeles and join the Groundlings and do improv because I was a big Saturday Night Live and Monty Python and SCTV guy growing up, and life got in the way. My grandmother was really, really sick at that time. I took care of her 9 months before she passed in early 2002. And I fell down a rabbit hole of depression for a few years, watched a lot of movies, and that really set the tone for my current, current life. And so I fell down a rabbit hole of alcoholism and depression and all that stuff. Eventually, I worked in the bar business for a long time. And then I had my car crash right at the height of like the worst time of my life. My mother and I were living on the streets because she was in a toxic relationship and all of that stuff. And I fell asleep in the driver's seat. The driver that I was hanging out with, the guy I was hanging out with for a long time leading up to that point, fell asleep at the wheel. We ended up in the middle of the road, and we got out okay. My hand was cut up a little bit. My heart was racing. I was sweating, and I blacked out. But apparently, what happened was a car collided with ours, and the impact hit us, and I got the worst of the injuries. I spent 5 months in the hospital, 30 days in a coma. I woke up on my mom's birthday, and I started listening to WTF with Mark Maron. Now, I grew up watching him on Conan O'Brien. Didn't think he was that funny, but when I heard what a great interviewer he was, I was like, oh my God, if I had a podcast, this is how I would love to do it. He's raw, no nonsense, no bullshit, tells it like it is. His guests tell it like it is. It's like, this is how a show should be, you know? Because by that point, the talk show late night was antiquated, all that advertising crap that was going on, So I made an attempt to start a podcast 6 months after recovery, and I couldn't pull it off. I wanted to get like all the stand-up comedians I knew from the Bay Area to come on and stuff, and they couldn't commit. So I got discouraged for a little while, and then my mom got me a great birthday present. She got me a VIP meet and greet to see a screening of Kevin Smith's then new movie Yoga Hosers at the San Jose Improv.
We didn't even get that here.
Oh, you didn't miss much. It was a bad movie, I'll be honest with you. There's some funny moments in it, but it's a bad movie.
That's what I hear.
Yeah. So I met Kevin after the screening. He had given a speech about how the podcast world was really taking off, and he inspired everybody to start a podcast. And it certainly inspired me to try again. So I meet him at the meet and greet. It's 12:30 a.m. because there was a shitload of technical difficulties. We were supposed to be out of there probably by 10, but we were there like until 12:30 a.m. And the doorman at the Improv, who was an open mic comedian that I knew, he told all of us, he said, "Please don't ask Kevin any questions. We'll be here till 5 a.m." you know. So it's my turn to go meet him, and I give him a hug. We take the picture. Gives me a hug again, and then I tell him, "Hey, Kevin, I have loved you since I was in junior high. You have really influenced my comedy writing because I'm a stand up comedian, and it's my dream to work with you someday." Now, Kevin probably says this to everybody. He said, "Hey, man, I'm going to be doing a reboot of Mallrats soon." He's like, "Come out to LA next year, and audition for me." And I said, "I will, Kevin." And he gave me one last hug. And then before I left, he said to me in a very Silent Bob like way, "Hey, Tommy, never give up comedy. The world needs to laugh." And I was like,
True.
"I won't, Kevin." So I walked out of there just walking on air, even though I knew that he probably says this to everybody. But it inspired me to try again. And I finally did almost 9 months later when my mom and I got a miracle, which is this apartment that I'm in. And I started within 4 weeks of moving up here. And I've been lucky ever since, knock wood.
Well, that's awesome, I I'd never talked to somebody that's been in a coma before. Talk
Mhm.
about I know I feel strange asking this because you're out, but then
Yeah,
again, you're not dead. Talk
right.
about that.
It's crazy, man. I mean, you just lay there. You're like, you're conscious, but like, you're like paralyzed. You don't know, why you're not waking up, really. You don't really know what's going on. you know. And I don't doubt that my soul left my body and went to heaven like my mom said I did when I woke up and I was saying, I was in comedy heaven with Robin Williams and Lucille Ball and all this stuff, you know. I don't doubt that didn't happen, but it was just weird. And I kept having this like Groundhog Day effect where I was just like waking up and doing my daily routine and then nothing was happening. It was just really, really odd. I can't explain it. It's one of those things where you have to actually be in the moment to know what I was talking about.
Hmm.
But it was weird. It really was. And it's been really spiritual for me. I'm a very spiritual person. I mean, I do believe in God, but I'm not conventionally religious, I wear a cross around my neck, because I was raised Catholic and all of that. But yeah, it was just a weird experience. It's just one of those ones where you have to be in the moment to actually experience it.
I also too, I got the good book over there, and I got my
Mhm.
dad's because dad just passed away this year. So
I know. My condolences, man.
my yeah, it's
Yeah.
funny. I didn't get very many of those from 13 Fanboy, but I won't get into that. I,
Yeah, let's not
al-
get.
Although I did hear from Lar Park Lincoln, so love her though. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, I did get Dad's Bible left to me.
Mhm.
Um, but nonetheless, yeah, I was raised that way, and I still believe it. And I
Mhm.
always tell people, the Passion of the Christ would be right at home on the cover of Fangoria magazine.
Yeah.
For all these people that complain
Mhm.
about R-rated films, I'm
Right.
gonna throw that film right back at them. And I loved it. I loved The Passion. Brilliantly filmed. Loved it all the way.
Mhm.
But nonetheless, we both have a love for movies. Now, I was born in 1972, so I just turned 50 this year. So
Mhm.
I have memories of the 70s, a lot of memories of the 80s, obviously. Um, but were you born in the 80s or the 90s?
I was born in 1983, and I was very lucky. I got to be a part of that last wave
Hmm.
of syndicated reruns of television and the most obscure movies being shown on local UHF stations and like TBS Superstation and CBS, NBC, ABC, and all of that stuff. And yeah, it was an amazing time. And of course, VHS was just starting to explode by that point, and we rented movies very frequently. And my mom works for the cable company. We got free cable, for 30 plus years. It was just insane. And it's very cool, to have an upbringing like that. I did go through a period where I was ashamed of being a movie buff for a while because I felt that it hindered me socially. And then once I had my accident, I felt like, what? People are gonna take what they will from me. If they don't like me, fuck it. I'm a movie buff. I'll find some like-minded people, but I'm not ashamed of it anymore. But I did put it to good use when I was working in the bar business. I played bar trivia. I always won the pop culture categories of music and film, and a lot of people hated me because of that. And I had that going for me. But yeah, I was very lucky. I got to grow up during that last wave of cable when it was actually good.
I remember we used to have drive-ins here. We haven't had them since the mid to late 1980s, but
Hmm.
I remember the first movie I saw was Pete's Dragon. I was
Uh,
5 years old, saw that at the drive-in movie theater. That was our first. Do you remember your first theatrical experience?
I have a little vague recollection going back to when I was at least one. I'm not quite on the level of Mary Lou Henner. I can't remember my days verbatim, but like my parents took me to see Weird Science at the drive-in on a double bill with Rambo First Blood Part 2. And I can remember I can remember seeing them. It's very clear in my mind. My parents took me to the drive-in for a couple of years and then they stopped for a while because I was always falling asleep because we were there so late, you know. yeah, I mean, I got to see The Golden Child, Star Trek 4, Heartbreak Ridge, Down Out in Beverly Hills, and Ruthless People. That Michael J. Fox movie with Joan Jett, Light of Day. That was actually the last one they took me to for a while, I think. Maybe it was Beverly Hills Cop 2, one of the two. And yeah, so I remember that was the first one. But like the first movie I ever actually saw, it's a toss up between The Shining and Cannonball Run. I mean, they were both on HBO a lot when I was a year old, so it could have been either one of those.
We saw Cannonball Run 2 at the drive-in in Moncton, and but I remember
Yeah.
the drive-in well because we saw the Star Wars trilogy at the drive-in.
Hmm.
You know, we saw E.T. I remember when that came out. We saw that in the drive-in. You know, Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. There was a lot of stuff. We saw revivals of Disney films. Like I remember the Aristocats and, you know,
Hmm.
the Rescuers. And I believe we saw Snow White and Bambi, you know, when they played. And I know when I was in Toronto, I actually saw my first IMAX, 2019, which was Apocalypse Now, which I'd never been to an IMAX before, so that was a first, and Apocalypse Now was a way to go for that.
Hmm.
Yeah, but nonetheless, you know, the '80s were an interesting time. I just love it when I hear people complain. They say, "Well, I wish things were like the '80s," but I'm like, I don't, because you see, I got one of these. I don't have to rush to a phone booth.
Right.
I got one of these. I can call somebody when I need it. You got
Yeah.
information right here at your fingertips when you need to look something up or blah, blah, blah. You know, we've got her pretty good right now, but I love
Yeah.
hearing these people. Now, were there great things about the '80s and the '70s? Yeah. But would I want to go back to it? No.
Yeah.
A lot of these people that I hear complain, they don't know because they weren't there.
Hmm.
I was, you know, so I remember a lot of that. So a lot of people take things for granted. So yeah, but nonetheless, you mentioned stand up. Now, who are your biggest stand up comedian influences?
I mean, I can remember seeing the ninth annual Young Comedian special that Rodney Dangerfield hosted when I was two.
Love
And
Rodney.
yeah, I mean, he was always a hero of mine. But like, I'm seeing Bob Saget, Rita Rudner, Yakov Smirnoff, Harry Basil, Louis Anderson on the special. But then when Sam comes on, Sam Kinison, I was never the same again. I mean, he, as a 2 year old boy, he blew me away. And like, he was just like our favorite comedian in my house growing up. And you know, it's funny, I romanticize this a lot, but he's, you know, the same age as my parents. He joked a lot about Vietnam and pop culture and stuff, right? And it's like no comedian had been for their generation the way Sam had been, obscuring pop culture and all the things that he talked about. And I just romanticize about it every time because some of my happiest memories of my parents, my uncle, who was a big Kinnison fan, my happiest moments of them laughing was laughing at Sam and the things that he said. You know, he was just amazing.
Love Sam. And of course, we both had his brother Bill on in tribute to him.
Hmm. He
Yeah.
was my he was my 200th guest, I remember, and I wish I had said an hour instead of a half hour because there's a lot that I even forgot to mention. I wanted to talk about Bill, about Sam getting cut out of Three Amigos and stuff like that, and we didn't have time. And he's bombarded with interviews all the time, so I didn't want to ask him back on a second time. But it was great the way we did talk. You know.
You know, I think one of the funniest things I seen Sam do was in Back to School. And a lot
Hmm.
of people did not get this joke because
Yeah,
he plays a character named Professor Turgensen.
Ferguson.
Did
Yeah,
anybody catch the Doctor Strangelove reference?
I never did.
Yeah,
No,
because George C. Scott played Turgensen,
right.
you know? So I'm like, did anybody catch that? And
Uh,
of course, you know, Sam playing a Professor, I think was one of, I mean, Back to School to me is one of my favorite comedies.
Mine
But
too.
I think one of the funniest things about it is the idea of Sam Kinison playing a professor.
I love that movie. We still quote it to this day. We quote all
Mhm.
Sam's lines in that. I just I think it's hysterical. And I'll tell you, I have the DVD in which Harold Ramis explains that they wanted to come up with this character of a teacher who had been traumatized in Vietnam, and they wanted him to be severely right wing. And Rodney thought, oh, why not get Sam to do that? And that's how he got to play Professor Turgeson. And I tell you, I read Bill's book. Sam did not want to do that part because he thought it was beneath him, but he came out for I think 3 days of filming for like 8 grand and had a blast. But he just didn't want to. He was very selective when it came to movies. Sam, that's why he didn't do too many. And he had that incident where he later got sued because he walked out on the first day of filming his own star vehicle, a Took, you know. But yeah, I think that's like one of the great, cameos in the history of film.
Let's not forget his appearance on Married with Children.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
I remember when that came out. I saw that when it premiered,
Hmm.
and Sam Kinison playing the angel. I'm like, yeah, that was typecasting.
I saw that long after it was long after Sam died. I didn't even know it existed, right? I was like, wow, how did I not see this when it premiered? I was cracking up, when Sam says, I'm sorry I failed you, Bundy. I was supposed to show you your reason for living, but I can't think of one darn reason.
Married with Children to me
Mhm.
is the greatest sitcom I ever seen.
Yeah.
I like to me, I always laughed. It didn't need a laugh track because it made me
No.
laugh.
No.
But
Yeah.
I'm gonna say I felt so bad because Divine was supposed to be on Married with Children
Oh.
and passed away before it happened. Could you imagine Al Bundy and Divine sharing screen time?
No, that wouldn't have worked. I think it was fate that Divine passed away before, that debacle.
I think it would have been so hilarious. Yeah. But nonetheless, we both had uh, similar experiences with the movies. Now, while you were healing,
Hmm.
like I'll go tell you, I can relate somewhat to this because I remember um my dad had a rupture operation,
Hmm.
and had dad not known this, I wouldn't have got the info on this because dad went and he had a rupture operation done. And I remember him coming back. I worked at the spring water plant at the time, and he tells me about the operation, and I said, down here? And he said, yeah. And I said, I have a bump down there too.
Hmm.
Needless to say, I went to the doctor and like father, like son, I had to
Hmm.
have a rupture operation. And I was nervous about it because I'd never been put under before. And where this turns into the movies is I remember the night before, it's like I watched Kingpin because I just wanted to watch somebody deal with a lot of shit. In this case, Woody Harrelson as Roy Munson. I
Yeah.
just wanted to watch something where somebody is dealing with a lot of shit, because then I could go to the hospital. But I just and for whatever reason I was talking about Bill Murray and Caddyshack and that gopher uh
Hmm.
be, before I got put under, and I never felt a thing, I never felt a thing, and I
Hmm.
come out of it. But it's interesting how movies can be an aid when you're
Hmm.
dealing with stuff like that. I remember also when I was dealing with a severe depression when somebody decided to take my heart out and stomp on it. I was going through a severe depression, and I remember the image that was going through my head was John Cusack running to the window in high fidelity and yelling, "You hear that, Laura? You weren't good enough to make it into the top five,
Yeah.
maybe number six, but not good enough."
Yep.
And I must have watched High Fidelity. Well, I wouldn't say every night, but most every night for a good 3 months because I needed to watch somebody else deal with having their heart broken. And
Hmm.
I couldn't think of anything better than High Fidelity, which is a movie that I absolutely love. And as a result, I ended up healing. So while you were dealing with your healing, what
Hmm.
movies were your healing go-tos?
I remember I watched Fast Times at Ridgemont High a lot.
Love
The
it.
Yeah, um, yeah. I had to put my D. I had to have, because I was living homelessly and I was living in this, let's call it a halfway house at the time.
Hmm.
I had to give my DVD collection to a friend of mine, and when I got the DVD collection back, Fast Times was in there. I watched it an awful lot. I watched Chopping Mall a lot, and I met Kelly Maroney around that time when I started going to conventions. And there was a couple others I can't even think of right now, but I was listening to a lot of podcasts more than watching movies during that period because I wanted to like learn how to do it, in terms of the conversation.
What was it like meeting Kelly Maroney?
So, okay, this was my first horror convention and second overall. I had gone to my first Comic Con in March of 2016. I met Leah Thompson, who was great.
Yeah.
And so, me and my friend, we were going to LA for 8 days, and we had nothing planned for that Sunday when we arrived. So I said, "Hey, let's go to Monster Palooza. Kelly Maroney and Catherine Murray Stewart are going to be there because I love Night of the Comet." And my friend had never seen the movie, so I showed it to him, and he's like, "Oh, that's awesome! Yeah, let's go." So we go there, and first I meet Kathy, and she was great. We became fast buddies. And then I go to Kelly's table afterwards, and yeah, she was just wonderful, so kind, so friendly. I remember Kathy's like signing the 8x10 I got, and I look at Kelly, and she's giving me the smile that she gives Ferdy in Chopping Mall when she first sees him, and I say to her, "It is Babe, isn't it?" And she was like, "Yes." And yeah, they were both great. You know, um, Kathy, she's done my podcast 5 times at least now, and she's wonderful. And Kelly, she let me interview her at a festival I saw her at in 2018, but she hasn't come on here. And you and I, we've talked privately about her press booking situation.
Yeah.
Um, but Kelly is just wonderful. I went to go see her do a play that week. She did not expect me to show up, but I did, and because I told her that I was going, and she hears that from fans all the time, I'm sure. And I showed up, and she was very touched by it. The next day, I wake up in the hotel. I got a friend request from her. I accepted, and I cried.
There you go. Well, Kelly is awesome. I love Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Probably my favorite teen movie, teen
Mm,
comedy, although I've got a lot of them. But nonetheless, let's talk about the convention scene because
mm,
I haven't had any bad experience at conventions. I know you've had your fair share here and there, and we're going to get into some of those.
yeah,
Um, as as I've said on here many times, I didn't start doing convention. I had no desire to travel, so
yeah.
I did my first one in 2017, and I really got the bug on it. And it was pretty awesome. I've done 4 horror-ramas in Toronto, and I'm about to do my second
Mm,
Frightmare in the Falls. I've done one Toronto Comic Con,
right.
so I'm an hour ahead of them in the time zone. But nonetheless, I'm looking forward to it, and it is a lot of fun, and you find a lot of really cool stuff there. Like I got coasters sitting here beside me that I got there. It's two. Actually, you mentioned The Shining. I actually got 2 coasters from The Shining.
Love it, love it.
Yeah, which was pretty cool. And
Oh, I got to show you who's next to me.
yeah,
Can you see?
Diane Franklin.
And Kimmy Robertson. I got Rose and Karen like by my bedside.
I have not had Kimmy on here. I'd like to get her. She's never responded. I did hear from Diane Franklin this year, and she was
Mhm.
open to do a group Zoom with Joe and Kimmy and a
Mhm.
bunch of them, but it never came together. And but I did get Tess Richard on here, so I was like, okay,
I know.
so.
Thank you for giving me her because God, we became fast friends. We're going to talk privately on the phone soon. She is
Hmm.
awesome.
Yeah, Tess was wonderful, but I haven't had Kimmy on here yet, and I would love to get her. But I'm one of these people, if I don't get somebody, I don't get somebody.
Mhm.
Um, Life goes on. I've been very, very lucky, as you have, on the people I have gotten. Rest in peace, Ted White. We both had him, and he just passed away a couple days ago.
Yeah,
And,
we got to talk a little bit about Ted because I may have conducted his last interview. I have no idea, but
mhm.
you can kind of tell near the end there that he was very forgetful, and after about 40 minutes or so of telling me great stories, he just couldn't remember stuff anymore.
I'll show you. Keep talking. I'll show you something because
Yeah,
I got the hockey mask. Yeah, I do. I
yeah,
got some signed pictures.
I
I
got
got
one too.
I got a couple signed pictures, and he sent me one of these.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, he was my favorite Jason. I actually, when I got home from work from an overnight shift, I actually watched Friday the 13th, the final chapter, because
Mhm.
frankly, the final chapter feels different
Yeah,
from all the other ones. And I think it's got kind of a John Hughes kind of vibe to it.
never thought of that.
It does, because the casting is really good.
It is good. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's between that and Jason Lives, I think they're the two best ones of the entire franchise. But um, Ted was my favorite Jason, and I think he was the scariest Jason.
Mhm.
Like I kind of wish they'd go back to that. Derek Mears did tap into it a bit in the reboot. I love that shot where he's running at the girl when he's sacking Jason. You just before he swings it cuts. I was like,
Yeah,
yes, that's what I want to see.
yeah.
But but um, but nonetheless, it was great that we got Ted. I was lucky to get him twice. I wanted to get him a third, but he wasn't doing well. And Sean
Yeah,
Clark kept me a little updated on his condition. So
yeah.
yeah, but Ted lived a great life at 96 years old. Did you get to meet him?
I know. So, he was scheduled to be at Monster Palooza in 2018,
Hmm.
and I ended up not going for personal reasons. And then I reached out to him, I think around Halloween time of 2018, and he had to respectfully decline at the moment because he had a couple of cons coming up, and he said it was going to be his last ones, and he wasn't going to do them anymore. So around late April of 2019, I thought to myself, I got to reach out to him again because he's 93 years old and it's almost my 2 year anniversary. And it would be great to have him for my 2 year anniversary, right? So we were scheduled for my 2 year anniversary, which was May 15th. And then I didn't hear from him. And I didn't hear from him for months. And then finally in September of 2019, I heard from him and we did it. And it was great. It was, and then I got the 8x10 in the mail like early of 2020, and that was great. You know, I'm glad at least I got an autograph. It's okay I didn't get to meet him, but at least I got the interview and I got the autograph. You know,
Same here. Yeah. Yeah, I got a couple of autographed pictures. One of him coming through the window there at Corey Feldman, and I got one signed pic of him attacking Axel with the hacksaw. you
yeah.
know, yeah. So I was happy to get that. A lot of the Jasons are passing away. Steve Dash is gone. Richard
Mhm.
Brooker's gone.
I met
You
Steve
know,
Dash.
what was he
I,
like?
he was, a tough, no nonsense kind of New York guy, you know, and I remember I asked him if he wanted to do an interview, and he said that he doesn't do interviews, which is not true. There's actually one on YouTube of someone interviewing him at a con. But of course, you and I, we've both talked to Warrington Gillette, so at least we got that. But I've met Steve CJ. I've interviewed him, and I've met him a couple times. He's a great guy, and his wife is awesome. She set up the interview. Kane, I've met a couple times. He's a funny guy, force of nature. Ari Lehman, of course, and he's been on the show. Um, I want to get Tom Morga, but I can't get through to him. His email is obsolete now. It doesn't work anymore. And I've asked a few stunt people I know if they can connect me, and I haven't heard back. So,
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I've had some great experiences at the cons. I've assisted Lisa at a couple of them, Lisa Langlois,
mhm.
um, and she's remained friends. I just met Caroline Monroe, and she was lovely. She took time to meet everybody, and I was lucky to have her on my show in 2016, but she was the big catch. Now, Horrorama does Saturday and Sunday. Sunday
Mhm.
was slow, but Caroline was consistently busy all weekend, you know.
Mhm.
And Chris Alexander has a big collection of 60 millimeter prints, and he did a screening of Dracula 1972 AD, which I'd never seen before. And Caroline was in attendance, and it was interesting meeting Jane Crimmen, her manager, who
Yeah.
connected me the first time. And she was actually, it was just a nice surprise that they got her there, although I shouldn't be surprised because they got Lamberto Bava in 2019, so I really shouldn't be surprised. But they
Yeah.
like to try to, it's a smaller con. They usually get at the most maybe a dozen guests, and so I think the two really big headliners were Caroline and Tom Matthews, who, when I told him my stuff with 13 Fanboy and the Judy Aarons stuff, he laughed.
I know. I saw that video. I was cracking up.
he just laughed.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously he doesn't buy it either.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, and they had a lot of Canadian talent there, like Lisa and Leslie and Lynn and Sean, and who were pretty consistently busy as well. But Caroline and Tom were the two big draws. Uh, Lance Kerwin ended up canceling, had to postpone, so he did not make it. But
Uh,
but nonetheless, yeah, it, the cons are fun. The fans are great,
yeah.
and I've made a few connections through them. And I'm looking forward to Frightmare in the Falls, which is a bigger con. I'm not going to be able to see everybody at that one, and but nonetheless, talk about some of the your favorite guess to me. If you was to take a top five, I know that's got to be hard.
Mhm.
Who have made the biggest impressions on you meeting
Of podcast guests or just people I've met at cons.
cons?
Okay, cons. Oh my God. Um, God, there's so many. Susan Lanier from The Hills Have Eyes. She's been on here 4 times now, and her and I are good friends. We stay in touch. She has no ego whatsoever. She is a sweetheart, and she's got a great sense of humor. Um, let's see who else. Dee Wallace is always awesome whenever I see her. Um, Terry Kaiser, oh my God, he is the very definition of a mensch. He is a sweetheart of a guy. I mean, that asshole Bernie that he plays and all those other characters, that is just an act. He is a sweet gentleman
I've
of a
heard
guy.
great things about him. I've
Yeah,
never had him on here, but I've heard good
yeah,
things about him.
yeah. I mean, it almost brings a tear to my eye when I think about what a great guy he is and how much humility he exudes. Let's see, a couple more. Um, I'm trying to think. God, because I've been to so many cons by this point. Oh, I can't forget Christy McNichol. I met her just before the pandemic, like a month before. And I've heard all these stories about her being a bitch because back in the day, she was in the closet and she just was getting in her own way as a person, and stuff. But she is a sweetheart, and I wouldn't mind meeting her again. I mean, a really good person. My favorite romantic comedy of all time is Just the Way You Are, and I can watch that movie now and just remember my experience with her and root for her every time I watch that movie now because it was so wonderful. And then let's see, one more. I guess a tie between Kathy and Kelly. Meeting them that time would qualify as one. I'm sure there's others that I'm forgetting right now, but they'll probably come to me. The more we go on here.
Okay, now we're gonna go to the opposite extreme. Now, I haven't had bad experience. Knock on wood, I hope to avoid them. Um, but nonetheless, have you had people that did not turn out to be what you hoped?
Oh yeah, I mean, you say you haven't had these experiences yet, right? Well, at least one is bound to happen, in the near future, Greg, because there's two types of people who do these conventions. There are the ones who love their fans like Kathy and Kelly, and then there are people who have a complete disdain for their fans and they just want to collect their money. I had bad experiences meeting like Linda Blair. She does Monster Palooza every year so she can raise money for her vegan causes and all that crap, right? And when you're in line waiting for her, they got security coming to you asking for your motivation for meeting Linda Blair because she's got a lot of people who are like anti-vegan, like wanting to like start shit with her. Yeah, I swear to God, this was at my first Monster Palooza. Yeah, and all I wanted was a picture with her, right? Me and
Well,
my
it's none of
friends.
their business. If you're paying, I mean,
Yeah,
it's none of their business.
I agree. I agree. But this is how it was. And so me and my friend, we just wanted a picture. We didn't want an autograph, right? So we just said that we wanted a picture, and she got up like it was a big inconvenience for her. And so she took a picture with us, and then she turned to me and said, "It said, is that your camera?" And I was like, "Sure." And she's like, would you like a solo picture? Now that was nice. Don't get me wrong, right? I took the solo picture with her, right? But then instead of like giving me a hug or like shaking my hand or anything, she just walked away so abrupt you know. And then I quoted a line from Night Patrol to her that made her roll her eyes. I said, thanks, you're a good guy, Sue. And she like rolled her eyes and then was like looking at the next person in line. So then I was out of there.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know one guy at the mall that met her, and he couldn't say enough good things about her. But I hear a lot of negative online. Now, I
Hmm.
haven't met Linda, so I have no frame of reference.
Right.
I do know I reached out to try to get an interview with her, and I don't know
Hmm.
who it was that was handling her because I thought this was so unprofessional. I
Hmm.
offered to make a donation to her animal cause to have her come on there, and they
Hmm.
had the nerve to ask how much.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, be thankful I'm willing to make a donation.
Yeah, that was that incident I told you about, with Nancy Allen's We Spark, when that girl wouldn't, connect me with her, and she's like, "Oh, maybe if you donated more money, then maybe she'll do it." It's just that kind of shit. It's creepy. It really is. It's uncalled for.
Yeah, I got very lucky with Nancy Allen. I was so happy to get her on to talk about Dress to Kill in particular. I love that movie. But yeah, if I get the chance to meet Linda Blair, I will take it.
Yeah,
But like I said, if I feel like I'm going to be disrespected, I have no qualms of walking away. You
yeah,
know? Yep. Um, like I said, I'm pretty much ostracized from 13 fanboy, and you know what? I could give a rat's fucking ass.
yeah. I mean, my experience with that was chicken shit compared to yours, but I didn't like the way that went down with you, Greg, because God, if they could do that to you, they could do that to anybody, even me. And so I just been keeping my distance, and I've unfriended a couple people as well, because it's just It's not for the fans. It's for their cash flow. Is what that project was for,
Hmm.
And someday, we're probably all going to be doing interviews about it. When the anniversary of the movie comes up. You know.
I don't know if it gets an anniversary, but I mean,
Yeah.
I'm still happy to be a part of it. But at the same token, like this whole stalker thing they keep throwing at me about Judy Aronson, where I
Mm-hmm.
don't have a passport.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna tell you, so I've been told that I she got 22 phone calls from me. Now, since I
Uh,
haven't heard from law enforcement, I want you to stop and think about this. Either she's really, really, really fucking insanely patient, or
yeah.
maybe 23 is the limit,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Well, let
But
me tell you. Let me tell you about my experience with Judy. Because your listeners certainly haven't heard it. So yeah, I mean, I tried to get her on my podcast for 4 years. I didn't think it was ever going to happen. Because I had heard a couple other guys had tried getting her, but nothing ever came of it. And after I had left her alone for a while, and 13 Fanboy was coming, out and stuff, I tried again, and she actually meant it when she said, yes, she'll do it. Because now she had an excuse to promote something. So we scheduled it the week before Halloween, and we were supposed to do it at 8 o'clock. She was 52 minutes late because she had gotten done, I think, at the gym or something like that, something along those lines, a workout or something, right? So she finally calls me at 8:52, and we spent about 5 minutes getting to know each other so she could be comfortable. And she was very nice to me, very. I have no complaints about Judy Aronson, and we finally started the interview. We were supposed to talk 30 minutes. We talked a full hour, and it was fantastic. I made her laugh, and she was surprised to find out that I knew so many of her close friends in the business. And it was great. And it is a favorite amongst the 80s horror icons that I've interviewed. And I just interviewed Julie Warner from Mr. Saturday Night for the 30th anniversary. Her and Judy are very close friends, and so she vouched for me right in front of me too on the comment section when she made the announcement that she was going to be doing her first podcast and mentioning my name. So that warms my heart, you know.
yeah. Oh, Judy makes me laugh different ways.
Yeah.
But that was a connection. Ted White. Now I
Mm,
know the powers that be like to whitewash this over, but it's right there in the fucking interview with Ted White. I'm
yeah.
sure you've heard it.
Yes, I heard it. 30 minutes
Ted
in.
Ted White
Yeah.
connected me with Judy and Kane. Isn't it funny? Kane Hodder's not squawking off about this,
Yeah. It's really weird.
and he's a bigger
Yeah.
star. So yeah, there's a bunch of producers and stuff with 13 Fanboy, and some of
Yeah.
the stuff I have heard come from that camp, and all I can do is fucking laugh, you
Hmm.
know. Yeah. So I don't care anymore. I get a
Yeah.
good job, and if they want to be famous, let them. But I
Hmm.
find it funny how I was told that because of my actions, the New Jersey screening of 13 Fanboy got canceled.
Hmm.
But yet there's a picture online of a bunch of them being interviewed at that screening, including should have known better Vincent DeSante, Christopher Norris sitting there like he's proud as shit,
Yeah.
and Tracy Savage and Ron Sloan have nothing to do with this trauma, so they're okay. But I'm looking at Christopher Norris and Vincent DeSante and Jason Bradford. I'm like, you guys got a lot of fucking nerve. And I got an email from Debbie Sue Voorhees that said nothing was canceled because of me. So
Hmm.
to those people saying it, fuck off.
They're bullies. That's what they are. They're fucking bullies.
Yep. I'm pretty sure Judy Aronson got paid very well out of the 3K I put towards that movie. But
I wouldn't know.
taking a pie in the face for suicide and depression. Oh yeah, it's too much. I might mess my up.
I know. Well, all we can do is learn from the experience and move on, you know. And yeah, I'll definitely not have Deborah back, another time because she's just not the same person she was when we first met her, you know.
I don't know. I know the last time I heard from her, I could sense in her tone that I think she regrets how she handled this because this should have been between her and I.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
But I got one thing to say to Christopher Norris. Deborah didn't know that he doubled for Harrison Ford in Indiana Jones in the temp no in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I talked to
Oh,
him at great lengths about that.
yeah.
So, but yet I got something to get canceled, an event that he's sitting there at. Oh,
I told you I unfriended Chris because he made that snarky comment about when I mentioned, I lost this amount of pounds, and he said something like, "Oh, did you take a shit?" or something like that. I just thought that was classless. He doesn't know me, I don't know him, so he shouldn't have said that. I mean, if you say it, Greg, I won't take offense to it, but him, I will take offense to it because I don't know the guy, you know?
if you lost weight, good for you. You know what? That's
Yeah,
great. You know what? That has nothing to do with taking a shit. You worked it off.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm the bad guy. I was half tempted. I haven't done it
Mhm.
because 13 fanboy people got wind of it. I was going to get a shirt done up with the screenshot dialogue on it and have 13 reasons why 13 fanboy hates me.
You have more balls than I do.
And another thing I was going to do, but I
Yeah.
listen, I
Mhm.
didn't stalk anybody, and I don't want to make light of anybody who has. And I
Mhm.
understand Judy Aronson has. I'm not fucking it. But nonetheless, I was almost tempted to have an I am Judy Aronson's stalker shirt where she's in the raft instead of template. It's me, but I'm looking at the shirt with a surprise. Oh, gotcha! Look on my face, but
Yeah.
I didn't do that. I think that would probably be too mean spirited.
Yeah.
Not that they're against doing shit like that with me.
Mhm.
After all, one of the producers of that film said there was somebody from my landline by the name of Brad Fanjoy.
What the hell? Sounds like a Simpsons character.
Oh, Jason Bradford, 13 fanboy. I find it funny Jason Bradford thinks I'm that obsessed with him. Is he that fucking narcissistic?
Well, he comes
Consider
off
the
like one because I listened to that first interview you did with them. God, he seemed like a jerk.
Well, he was a really nice guy at first. He did two Doubtfire challenges, but like I said, I'm not famous. Debbie Sue was in that fifth movie, so obviously I'm a piece of shit to them, you know. But here's the thing, and this is something I would say to Jason Bradford. If there's
Mhm.
somebody on my phone by the name of Brad Fanjoy, there's an easy way for me to find out. All I
Yeah.
have to do is go into my phone records.
Yeah.
That was my basically my explanation of saying fuck off.
Yeah.
I got nothing to hide.
I know.
Nothing
I
to
know.
hide. But because people don't know me, I'm you know, I
Yeah.
did get some stuff in the mail from 13 Fanboy recently, so I'm like, okay. And I gave a nice video,
Mhm.
but but I would have liked to have seen it on the big screen instead of on fucking YouTube,
Yeah.
but
I saw it on
nonetheless,
YouTube. Yeah, I
yeah.
saw it on YouTube.
And it's
And
funny,
mm,
the one I had the crush on in that movie, Tracy Savage, has no problem with me.
mhm.
Isn't that funny? It's not Judy Aronson that I had the crush on.
I'm
It's
sure she
not.
avoids the drama. I'm sure Tracy
Yeah.
Savage avoids the drama, so
Well,
yeah, I wouldn't.
Mike Guttridge put me in touch with her. Mike Guttridge was one of the people that reached out to me and asked what was going on with 13 Fanboy. You know why Mike Guttridge reached out to me as opposed to cutting me off like Christopher Norris, like Jason Bradford, and like so many others? Because I opened the door for Mike Guttridge to talk about the Bone Garden,
Mhm,
and he appreciated it. Troy Elke appreciated me asking him to do the show. But there's a
mhm.
lot of people out there that are so high on themselves. It's like, yeah, Greg gave us an opportunity to cut him off. We're with the click now. So, and I know through talking to you, it's funny. I've made amends with Rob Mahoney, I was
Mhm.
at odds with, and I made amends with you, who I
Mhm.
was at odds with. But with them, it's like there's no making amends. It doesn't
No,
matter what I say or do. I'm being labeled a stalker or a harasser.
yeah,
Now
it's
they
it's
won't.
it's
Yep, they won't
it's
say it to my fucking face though. I
yeah,
guarantee you that.
it's the mighty dollar. That's why.
They don't have enough balls to say it to my face.
Mhm.
Brad Fanjoy. He definitely doesn't have enough balls. But nonetheless, I know you've had these experiences too. And it's not fun when you're dealing with jerk off behavior,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, So you mentioned Linda Blair. Who are some of the other disappointments?
I mean, I've had experiences where the person's just not social. It's always got to be the women for some reason, and I can see why. They're pretty and they get a lot of guys, being creepy with them or what have you. I met Danielle Harris and she didn't really seem to want to hear what I had to say. Christy Swanson, that disappointed me because Christy Swanson's an icon, and she was just really cunty, and she's a Trump supporter. If you go on Twitter,
Christy Swanson disappointed me recently.
hmm
She was on Cameo,
yeah,
and Scotty McCoy had suggested I throw Doubtfire Face challenge for suicide and depression awareness out in Cameo. Okay,
uh,
Judy Aronson was a fuck off on that, and she's not the only one. But Christy Swanson was using the money to raise something to do with her daughter.
right,
I was like, okay, how about kill two birds with one stone? So I threw the Cameo out, but I put a note. I said, look, if you have issues taking a pie in the face, don't bother with this or something to those effects. I said that.
hmm
Um, she does a Cameo and says she has no issue with it, but blah blah blah, and wishes me luck on the thing. I'm like, why did you fucking respond?
hmm
Because it cost me money. But you know what? I think she knew exactly what she was doing. She avoided doing the challenge because after all, doesn't matter because it comes from me and she's more important than I am.
right,
And so she got her money. So you know what? Not only did I not keep the Cameo, but I wrote her a bad review and told her why. I
hmm
said, "Look, I'm not keeping this. I'm not keeping this. You knew exactly what you were doing. You wanted the money, but you didn't want to do anything fucking for it."
hmm
I'm getting to the point now where I don't even throw that out to. I remember you said something to me that was jarring too. You said a lot of women see it as a sex thing. I never thought of that. And considering the
yeah,
fact
hmm
I'm straight. Well, Scotty McCoy is a guy.
yeah,
James Ellsworth is a guy. Jason Bradford is a guy. Michael Levy from Terrifier is a guy.
hmm
These are all men that I've thrown this out to that have done it. I just
hmm
have a preference to throwing it at women because it's much more fun to see them do stuff like this.
right,
But of course, somebody's going to twist it around and make it into a sex thing. To them, I
yeah.
say, go fuck yourself, you know?
well, I'm not into that sort of thing, right? But I know that those people out there do exist. Guys want to see a woman, all slaughtered in whipped cream and all that stuff. So I'm just trying to see it from their point of view.
That
Even
was
though
not but
I know,
again, I never thought of
yeah,
it that way. But
yeah,
it's like, but I mean, Christy Swanson wanted her fucking money, and she got her money. And I took the cameo and I went over to the trash can. I went, what?
yeah,
Zipped my pants down, took a big piss on it, put the lid down, took it out to the dumpster, and whew, and that was that. If she's at a Economat, great. That'll
yeah,
be extra money she won't get from me. I
yeah,
can play that game too, because you learn fast about what these people are like. It's funny because Leah Thompson did it. She didn't have a pie, she had an ice cream cone, but she did it.
yeah. Hmm.
But I'm a bad guy. It was funny when it was ALS for the ice bucket challenge. That was fun. That was okay. And
Mhm.
yet that was a disease that killed my dad.
Yeah.
But that was okay. But this, no. And you know what it is, Tommy? And I know you can relate to this. It's
Mhm.
because we're not popular enough.
Mhm. Exactly.
We're not popular enough. You know why people from 13 Fanboy, with the exception of a given few, didn't want to do this challenge? Because despite the 3K I put into the movie, I'm nobody. I'm
Yeah.
nobody.
It's a big club and you're not in it.
Yeah, but you know what? I know the truth. Yep, I know the truth. I just, yeah. But nonetheless, that's one area where you and I were able to relate. And by the way, you were the first one to send me condolences on my dad.
Yeah. Of
I appreciated it. And as far as
course.
13 Fanboy goes, I did hear, and I hit or miss hearing from Laura Park Lincoln, but I was touched by the message she sent me, you know.
Mhm.
I thought that was really cool. But no, that would have been one way for them to make some amends with me. Crickets. I bet they're upset because it wasn't me.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But nonetheless, you've had some of these bad experiences as well. Now you mentioned Linda Blair, and
Mhm.
I know I'm beating this dead horse, but I know you've got some stories, and you've and I know you probably have more good experiences than not. But if you was recommending, what's your best advice to anybody going to a con?
If you don't want to be looked at as an ordinary fan and you want to be looked at as an equal, you know, be specific when you compliment them. Don't say, "Oh, I love this movie, that movie." Be specific about it. And also don't just talk about that. Talk about other things. Say, "Hey, did you like your hotel room when you got to this con? You know, have you eaten lunch yet? Something like that. Because they want to feel comfortable with you. And I tell people in the podcasting world this too. Just make the people feel comfortable. Be specific and talk about other things. But oh, here's a big one for the cons. Make sure you have at least $300 because it can get pretty expensive.
Oh, I gotta have at
Yeah.
least a couple grand.
Oh yeah, I bring at least 700 to 1,000 in some cases. Like when I go to Monster Palooza. Hey Skittles. Hey, I've heard so much about you.
Skittles says, I'm good in his book. Yeah. You like me.
Oh,
13 Fanboy don't like me, but you do, don't you?
my cat's asleep right now. Um, but
Skittles is like, yeah, you got treats. That's why I like you.
yeah, but I say, bring a lot of money to the cons. Have a game plan of who you're going to meet and be conscious of how big the following is because you could be in line for a long time. Like,
Get VIP.
there's two people I've met where I was in line for 2 hours and 35 minutes. right? Oh, there was no VIP for these cons, by the way.
Oh, okay,
Um,
you're screwed.
Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens.
Hmm.
I was in line for 2 hours and 35 minutes. Met this cute girl who my mom was chatting with, and I wanted to hit on her, but I was so exhausted by the time by the time everything was getting in order that I didn't, and I regretted a little bit. But meeting Pee Wee was great, and then I was in line for 2 hours and 35 minutes meeting Robert England, and that was awesome. And that picture is right up here.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah, up here if you can see it.
yeah. I seen it on your
Yeah,
Facebook.
yeah.
I heard
So
he's crazy expensive.
he is. I paid, I want to say, $100 for the autograph. He signed my Dream Warriors poster, and it was another 100 for the photo op. And it was great though. We talked for 15 minutes. He likes to give everybody at least 15 minutes of his time because he's so appreciative of his fans. And he was telling me stories about making that Andrew Dice Clay movie, The Adventures of Ford Fairlane, and
That
stuff like
movie
that.
was horrible.
I love that movie. I let me tell you something. I've interviewed Corey Haim's uh, childhood girlfriend, Lala Slootman, who's Frank Zappa's niece. She loved working with Andrew Dice Clay in that movie when she was one of the sorority girls. She said he was so damn funny and just a great actor, you know. And I recommend getting her on the show. I think you'd have a lot of fun with her. She's got one of those real guffaw laughs that is just so infectious. She's
Hmm.
just awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So Horrorama was a smaller con. It was,
Hmm.
and the autographs were not heavily. Here's something I don't get.
Yeah.
I met Caroline Monroe.
Right.
Autograph was $30 or three for 75. That is a really good deal for Caroline Monroe. Frightmare in the Falls. The most expensive people are Daniel Harris and Scout Taylor Compton. Daniel Harris is nowhere near the star that Caroline Monroe is. But
Mhm.
my biggest argument is Scout Taylor Compton. If you're getting Caroline Monroe for $30, why are you paying
Mhm.
80 for Scout?
Yeah.
I don't understand that. And
It's it's all the agents. It's not the guests
yeah.
themselves, it's the agents because they want to cut of the price that they charge 10%. And I think it's bullshit because I've told you this privately. This is payback for not getting residuals back in the 70s and 80s on these horror films. That's why this capitalistic society of cons exist. It's really disgusting because a lot of people can't go to these cons and meet their idols anymore. They did back in the 80s when the autographs were free. you know it's sad.
Well, I'm going to tell you, sometimes, like Lisa Langlois, for example, had a great idea at Horrorama recently, and I
Hmm.
love what she did. She her autograph was not expensive, but she had a
Hmm.
thing when you get a selfie with her, make a
Hmm.
donation of your choice, and she had envelope of three charities.
Oh, nice.
One was for one was an animal charity, one was the food bank, and one was for youth housing, youth
Okay.
on the street. And there was no set amount. If you want, just put $1 in, put $1 in. And when you did a selfie with her, you contributed to one of those. And I was like, wow, that's a great idea. And Lisa always uses the cons as an opportunity to not just help herself, but
Yeah.
help a cause out. She's always into that. And so when I look at the what you call the capitalistic view, yeah,
Hmm.
I'm starting to see a little bit of that. And I know Tom Savini and Michael Biehn both had to postpone from Frightmare.
Hmm.
So I had to readjust who I'm going to meet. But here's the thing, and this is what makes this different from Horrorama. Horrorama, I was pretty much able to go see everybody
Hmm.
and still have money left over.
Right.
With Frightmare in the Falls, I can't see everybody. I
Hmm.
just can't see everybody. So I have to figure out who I'm going to meet. Now, here's generally what I do, and because I know me well,
Hmm.
I like getting my Blu-rays signed. So
Hmm.
I'll bring a Blu-ray up and get it signed. But a lot of times too, I'll get a picture signed. So that's double their price right there, and then a
Hmm.
picture with them. So for Danielle Harris is on my top tier list of people to meet. She's got to be the
Hmm.
most. She's taken up most of my expenses. I'd never met her before, so I hope she's nice. But I think it's $80. But if well, here's the thing: I don't have a Halloween 4 Blu-ray,
Hmm.
and to order it online, it won't come to me until November, and I'm like, that's too late. And I would order it for the con. I'm not that interested in it to get it just in general. But if I was going to get something signed for her for a Blu-ray, I think Halloween 4 is it.
Hmm.
But I asked Lewis from Suspect Video if they're going to have copies of the Blu-ray at their vendor. I haven't heard back from him, but I'll see. But she might be a case where I just get a picture signed.
Hmm.
Now, uh, that's usually the case with me. I'll get a Blu-ray signed and a picture, so it's kind of double their money.
Hmm.
Um, and that can get pricey with Frightmare because I think the most expensive $80. The lowest is 40. There's a few that are 40,
Hmm.
which makes it easier. And there's some right in there that 55, 60 mark.
Right.
So I have to plan very carefully.
Hmm.
How are you at planning these?
Well, back in 2020, I saved a lot of money leading up to the pandemic, and then the pandemic happened. Um, the Hollywood show in Burbank and Monsterpalooza in Pasadena were going to be the same weekend that May, and I had to miss them. But I've been able to save a lot of money, and I've been to two cons in the last year, and they're not overly expensive cons, but I've had plenty of money to spend to go to the cons. Yeah, generally what I do is if I have more than one item from a certain person that I want to get signed, I make sure I budget that. If I want to get one item signed or an 8x10 or whatever from just one person, or just one from that person, I'll budget that. Hopefully, I always hope that the prices are going to be mentioned on social media. A lot of the times they don't, but there's a couple times who do that. And so I budget that. I always have money on my debit card so I can get some lunch while I'm there in case or if they have like or if they have like something that's cash only, I'll have some extra cash left over, to get food if they don't take cards, and so I just budget it that way. And I always provide gas money for my friend or my mother who's taking me to the cons, because I don't drive. So yeah, it's pretty easy to do that. It's common sense. After a while, it becomes like a second language to you when you go to these cons. You're like, I gotta plan this and that, and I always have like a list of who I want to meet, and sometimes I'll cross them off, especially if I find out at last minute they dropped out, and canceled. Yeah, so it's just pretty simple standard planning.
Yeah. Who's the most expensive you've ever met?
It would probably be Robert England, maybe.
Okay.
I'm
At
guessing,
least he was
yeah.
nice, so
Yeah, because there's been a few people I looked at their prices and I was like, fuck no, frickin' you couldn't even give me $1 million and I wouldn't give away the fee that they're asking for with that $1 million. I was just like, that is ridiculous. Like I heard that Mark Hamill charges like $200 for an autograph, and Arnold Schwarzenegger charges 450. Yeah, and I was like, oh my god. And I made a joke. I said, yeah, I'll go meet Arnold and I'll give him $4.50. You know?
I don't understand some of these people.
Yeah.
Like the prices. Like I know John Travolta did one in Toronto, which was rare.
Hmm.
And I heard that he was nowhere near that bad. And that's John Travolta.
Hmm.
I forget what his price was, but I would have been able to make it work,
Hmm.
you know? But at least, John had like it's like, he factors in people's expenses as well as profiting himself. When you get people that are charging $450, they don't give a shit about people in their lineup.
Hmm.
And for me, I don't give a shit about meeting them.
Yeah. Well, when I went to my first Comic Con, with the Back to the Future cast there, Michael J. Fox, he charged 200, but that was going towards his stem cell research fund,
that's
right?
fine. I get that.
Yeah, I didn't have that kind of money.
Hmm.
Um, Christopher Lloyd was $100, and Leah Thompson was 60. That was the cheapest, so that's why I went for her.
I
And
would have went for her because, she's
yeah,
the cutest.
she is. She's one of my favorite actresses of all time. I told her that. She gave me a hug, and she's not a hugger, but she did give me one, and she thought that I was very sweet. And I wish I had gotten an autograph, but I just got that photo op with her. And um, yeah, I think the cheapest I've ever paid. I think Harry Manfredini, who did the music for the Friday the 13th movies, he was like $15 for a signed picture or something like that. That was like the cheapest I've ever gotten of anyone's of autograph or picture. Yeah.
He's going to be at Frightmare, and he's in my mid tier,
Hmm.
which means
He's a sweet
maybe,
guy.
you
Yeah.
know, if I get something signed by him, I think it'll be Friday the 13th Part 2 because it was my favorite of the music scores.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He, he,
I'm not gonna lug that whole box set down there. It's just not gonna happen.
yeah.
But I think that was my favorite music score. And since Amy Steele and Lon Marie Taylor and Warrington Gillette are gonna be there, I could probably get a lot of signatures on that disc. But how many of those people I actually meet? I know Amy and Lauren are on my top tier,
Hmm.
you know. And I don't want to discourage anybody else. I'm not judging anybody, but like I said, when you get so much money, you got to factor in things. I know there's some people, especially some of the females, I definitely want to meet.
Yeah.
you know, like there's a reason Amy Steele and Adrienne King are high up on my list because I had crushes on them growing up, so of course I want to meet them in person.
Hmm.
But yeah, but and then there's some people be hard, like PJ Souls has never been at a con I've been at.
Yeah.
She'd
I
be
love her.
somebody I'd have a difficult time of finding a Blu-ray for her to sign between Halloween, Rock and Roll High School, and Carrie. It's like
Mhm.
it's almost like I couldn't. How could I limit that down to one?
Yeah.
You know, like
I
with
got a couple.
Law Marie Taylor, I got Friday the 13th Part 2 here. I've got Neighbors here, and I've got Girls Night Out. But I think I can pretty much say, yeah, Friday the 13th Part 2. With
Yeah.
PJ, it's a little more difficult.
Yeah. When I met PJ, she signed my Carrie DVD and my Halloween poster, and her eyes got really wide. She was like, "Oh, you're a Halloween fan too?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." And I wanted to get this 8x10 of her as Riff Randall laying on her bed in Rock and Roll High School, right? And I just didn't want to spend another $30 for it, right? But next time I see her, I'm gonna get my VHS that I just bought off eBay that's still in good condition, original clamshell Warner Brothers case of Rock and Roll High School, and I'm gonna have her sign that. And there was something else I can't remember, but yeah, and like PJ really does podcast interviews, but she did one with me a couple days before Christmas in 2017, a couple months after I met her, and she was fabulous. And I was such a lousy interviewer at that time. She just she carried that interview and was awesome, just like Cindy Morgan had done before that. I was very lucky to interview some great ladies who like helped me through the interview because I wouldn't say I was starstruck or nervous, but I was definitely just at amateur level of like, God, do I insert a joke here? Do I, engage? Do I ask a follow-up question? But the pandemic has really made me a better interviewer because I just got so busy that the more I do it, the more it's like a second language to me.
You know what? It's interesting because you always get better, you know? I
Hmm.
know I'm a better I started doing the podcast in 2015. I know I'm a better interview now than I
Hmm.
was then, because you start to get more comfortable. Um, you start to get in that I still get a little starstruck, but not
Oh
real like
yeah.
I don't oogle like Nancy Allen was a big deal, when I got her. Dick Miller was a surprise when I got him,
Hmm.
there's stuff like that. But for the most part, I see a lot of the human side of these people, which is
Yeah.
always nice, and you get to realize, these people put their pants on one leg at a time, just like
Hmm.
everybody else.
Hmm.
So, um, but nonetheless, cons have been great. Do you have a favorite con?
Monsterpalooza because they have close to 30 or 40 people there from so many of your favorite horror movies from the 70s and 80s there, sometimes creature features from the 50s and 60s if they're still alive. you
Mm-hmm.
know when I first went to my first one in 2016, right, it was Kelly Maroney, Catherine Mary Stewart, as we've already established, but also Linda Miller from King Kong Escapes, Fred Williamson, Robert Hayes, David Naughton, um, Kathleen Kinmont, Kimmy Robertson. Who else was there? The Mexican girl from Predator. And God, who else? I remember Brink Stevens was there at last minute, and I met her. And then, but Linnea canceled at last minute. And of course, I've been interviewed for her documentary, and I've interviewed her 3 times. And I had that incident that I told you about.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten to know Linnea. But then, who else? There was somebody else that canceled that I really wanted to meet. Oh, and Diane Franklin was there, but she was only there Friday, and I got there Sunday, so I didn't meet her, until she was my first interview a year later. And Kimberly Cates, who was the other princess in Bill and Ted, was there with her, and so I missed those two. But that was a huge lineup. They have lineups like that every year. Like this year, like this weekend, right? They had Stacey Nelkin and Tom Atkins doing a Halloween 3 reunion. They had Weird Science reunion. Judy was not there, by the way. It was Anthony Michael Hall and Elon
Gee, I should have
there.
went there if she wasn't there.
Yeah. God, who else was there? I can't. Christina Elise was there. I can't stand her. That's a whole nother story.
Oh, she's supposed to be at Frightmare in the Falls last year, and
She's a repugnant person. Even Ronnie Angel will tell you that.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Because I know when Felissa Rose does her Doubtfire challenge, Christina Lease is one of the people she's going to nominate, and
Yeah.
but nonetheless, I never got a chance to meet her, and because the day of the con, and there was two or three people that had canceled. I know prior to it, Linnea and Michael Berryman had canceled.
Love
Um,
Michael. Love
well,
him.
Linnea apparently, according to the promoter, she didn't have her vaccinations apparently,
Hmm.
and but I mean that's what I was told. But Michael Berryman, I don't know what the story was, but there was some people that canceled. But the day of the con, I went there and I bought Child's Play 2 on Blu-ray specifically for her to sign, and she was nowhere in sight. And I
Yeah.
asked a few people like, "Where is she?" And even the people working there didn't know. But
My beef with her happened trying to get her on the podcast. When I met her, she was just, she was decent, but she's, a punk rock girl from Boston, and she just has a lot of emotional trauma from whatever happened to her in her childhood or whatever. I'm not judging her based on that, but she's got a little bit of bitterness in her because of whatever happened in her career or whatever, you know. But like I tried to get her on the podcast for a long time. She kept saying to me for like a year that she was going to do it. And I remember I made some really inappropriate joke on social media on her comments, and she got pissed off about it. And it's like, oh my God, you're the type of girl who would laugh at this kind of a joke. Why, you getting offended? And so she ended up blocking me on all social media.
That's okay. Debbie Sue Voorhees blocked me on all social media. I
Yeah,
consider it a fucking badge of honor. You know,
exactly.
you know what? I'm to
Exactly.
the point now with 13 fanboy. It's like fucking block me. See if I give a shit. You know.
Yeah.
Yep. Uh, Tom Matthews been on a third time. He still likes talking to me. And I know the full
Mm.
story of why he's not in that movie
Oh
anymore.
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
It's funny what's being told and what he tells is two different stories,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm kind of bitter about that. But no, I never heard anything about Christina Lease. I never reached out to her. And in terms of Child's Play, I don't think I've ever reached out to anybody from those movies.
I just remembered the story I should have told earlier when we were talking about the bad experiences of the cons, right? I met I okay, so when I went to Sun and Monster Palooza in 2016, which was the second one I went to after that first experience with Kathy and Kelly, I went there, and there were so many great people I met at that one, Greg. E.G. Daly was there, Tawny Katane, the cast of The Hills Have Eyes, lots of great people. Caroline Williams, who played Stretch in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, was scheduled to be there, right? I loved her death in Leprechaun 3 when her ass and her lips become huge and she blows up, 'cause she wanted Botox. So I looked for her the entire day and could not find her, right? And so at nighttime, they're doing an after party, and they were having like a zombie beauty contest where they had these girls wear zombie makeup, and they were like doing like a zombie beauty pageant type of a thing, and they had celebrity judges, right? So it was Caroline Williams, Kevin Tenney, who directed Night of the Demons, and who else was it? Maybe Steve Johnson or something like that. Anyways, after the judging was over and what have you, I wanted to. They were sitting right behind me and my friend, right? I wanted to introduce myself and say hi and tell Caroline Williams, how much I like her work because I couldn't find her at her table during the day, right? So I go to so I'm in line at the bar to get a drink, and Caroline Williams comes walking by, right? And she's walking, and I say, "Hi, Carolyn," and she's like, "Yes." And I said, "Hi, my name is Tommy Kovac." And before I could say my last name, she waved me away and walked away. And I was so angry. And I yelled, I hope you fucking die like you did Leprechaun 3. And like people heard it and they were laughing hysterically, but I was pissed, right? I don't appreciate that kind of rudeness at all, right? So I called her out on her Facebook pages and she blocked me. And
Good.
then 2 years later, right, this guy I know who has a horror, he had a horror radio show, not a podcast, radio show. He has her on her show, right? And I'm listening to her talk, and she is laugh out loud funny, right? So I was willing to give her the benefit of the doubt of that past experience and like ask her if she'd come on to do the podcast. She did not block me on Twitter, right? And
Hmm.
her box was open. So I asked her if she'd come on the podcast, and she said yes. Just wait until this date or whatever, right? So I wait until that date, and then I ask her, we going to do this thing, and she said, my agent, who shall remain nameless, this guy is an evil piece of shit, and he has his own podcast with him and his boyfriend. They're both gay, and and she said, he said you don't have enough followers, and he just started following me on Twitter, right? and I said, "Hey, listen, I was willing to overlook the fact that you were rude to me a couple of years ago at Monster Palooza, but this is really, really low." So she blocked me, right, on Twitter. And then I think it was a year later, I was at Monster Palooza after party, and I was talking to a couple celebrity friends of mine there, right? And she came over and she just gave me the stink eye. I think she knew who I was, and she was just really, really rude. So I just ignored it and walked away and what have you. And like people have told me, like she'll go to a horror event she's not scheduled for and like steal everyone's thunder as they're trying to sell autographs. Say like, "Hey, you know me, I'm Stretch in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. You want my autograph? You want a picture with me?" Yeah, she does that kind of shit.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I find that funny, it's
Yeah.
yeah, when you're at these things you're selling yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
that's not very I've never I don't know whether I reached out to Caroline Williams or not,
Mm-hmm.
it
Well, don't. She's that bad.
oh, is she? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But I know that we've thrown guests at each other a few times,
Mm-hmm.
Tessa Richard was good with you, and she's a sweetheart, and
Yeah.
but it's always nice to get good people.
Yeah.
And yep. And it's always nice, to meet people you interviewed and they turn out to be really good too. When I go to cons, I like to like a lot of times I try to uh not only meet them, but I give my business card out and
Mm-hmm.
try to
Same
establish
here.
a yep. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
know two of the people I want to meet at Frightmare. I want to meet David Naughton
Yeah, he's a
because
great guy.
I've never had anybody from An American Werewolf in London on the show.
I tried. I
Yeah.
tried. What's her name? Nina Carter. She turned me down cold last year for the 40th anniversary.
Uh,
Yeah.
so I'm trying on that. I'd like to get somebody from that, and I'm going to see if I can convince him. And I'm also looking forward to meeting Harvey Stevens
Hmm.
because it's getting hard to find anybody from the Omen.
Hmm.
And so I'm going to see if I can get him to come on the show. And
I found an Omen guest. If I asked her to come on last year. Her name's Tina Simmons. I forget who she played, but she was also in a Star Wars movie at the same time. It,
okay,
she had some family issues, right? I'm going to reach out to her tomorrow. If she says yes and we do it, I'll connect her with you.
okay. Yeah, because a lot
Hmm.
of times for me, and I know you must have this feeling when you watch one of these movies and you see somebody, it's like you had that connection,
Yeah.
on the podcast and whatnot, and it's a lot of fun,
Hmm.
Um, what movie have you had the most guests? For me, it was 13 Fanboy, 25.
Hmm.
Some of them appreciated it.
Yeah. It's a tie.
Others think I'm Satan.
Yeah. It's a tie between Jason Lives and Just One of the Guys. Like I love those movies so much. Like I'd interview every single person in those movies if I could. Like those were huge staples of my childhood.
Hmm.
Um, I know you haven't really had anybody from Just One of the Guys. I don't know if you've seen the movie, but it's
I
one of the
have.
funniest.
It's been
Yeah,
so long. It's
it's
not
one.
on my radar, but I
Mhm.
have connected with somebody from it.
Yeah, Joyce Heiser, who's the star. She's been on 3 times. Oh my God, she loves my jokes. I'll tell you. I went to go see her. She did a screening up in San Francisco for the movie with Sherilyn Fenn back in 2020, just before the pandemic hit. And I told her some joke when she came on to promote that she just thought wasn't funny. And she's like, "When you see me in person, you better tell me a funny one, or I'm gonna smack you one." And I said, "Okay,"
Oh,
as a
that's a
joke.
win-win.
As a joke, she said that or something, or I'm gonna kick your ass, or whatever she said. Okay. So I told her one. Oh my God, the look on her face. She just could not believe how gross that was. And I hope she told Sherilyn Fenn that joke later. I hope she did.
You ever had Sherilyn Fenn on the show?
No, but I've met her twice, and
Okay.
she's nice. She's kind of strange, but she's nice.
Well, Jason Lives, I've had 7 guests now, a couple newbies this year. So
Hmm.
you know, I love Jason Lives. Um, I've had a few people from the Friday the 13th movies, and I grew up with those movies. So there's a lot of memories. My affection towards them has dwindled a little bit, you
Yes,
know?
obviously. Yeah.
Yep. Um, it's funny because part 4 is one of my favorites, and yet Judy Aronson hates my fucking guts because of God bless Ted White. Thank you so much for the connection, man. But boy, I'm going to tell you, if I was trying to connect two people to talk, and the person I tried uh, to make the connection with was
Mhm.
rude to said person, of course, I never did mention this to Ted because I'm not going to bring that up, but
Yeah, yeah,
still, like, fuck,
yeah.
but Friday the 13th, the final chapter, Ted White's my only interview from it. He may be my only interview from it, but
We'll get
I'm
we'll get
glad I
Bonnie
got him.
we'll get Bonnie Hillman, the hitchhiker. She's great.
I've tried, and she's never responded.
She takes a while. I remember it took me probably at least a week or so. Yeah.
Lawrence Monoson's never responded, and I know Joe Robo and Diane Franklin encouraged that, but he's never responded. And it's like,
Oh, the
you
Moore
know, like
twins. I've had the Moore twins on. They're
I would
awesome.
love to get both of them more. Now, the only set of twins
Hmm.
I've had on, I had the Materas twins from
Hmm.
Single White Female.
Yep, and Kindergarten Cop and Problem Child 2.
Yep.
Yep.
But I wanted to get somebody from Single White Female because I like that movie way more than I did Basic Instinct, And I was so happy to get the Materas twins on from Single White Female, and that little open black and white opener, or that maybe it was color. It's been a while since I've seen it. I got it here though. But
Yeah.
love Single White Female, and I got the Materas twins, and it's one of my top 10 most listened to interviews.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
Yep, they are lovely, but I would love to get the Moore twins.
Yeah, it's hard to get in touch with them. Uh, Camilla, she has, was it Camilla or Carrie? No, it's Carrie. Carrie has a real estate business, and I connected to her through that, and she's on Facebook, and she's great. Yeah, they're good people.
Yeah, okay. I'd love to get. Did you have them both on together?
Yes,
Oh,
which almost didn't happen. It was going to be only Carrie at first, but then she was able to get her sister to come over, and they both live in LA, so it was great, and I made them laugh and stuff. It's funny because who was it? I think it was Carrie. She was naked in the movie Once Bitten, the Jim Carrey vampire teen comedy movie, and she forgot all about it. And she forgot, like I brought it up to her, and it was kind of awkward that she didn't remember that. I was like,
I
"Yeah,
don't
it was."
remember her in that movie.
Well, we see her backside, so we don't see everything. We just see her backside. And I told her, I said, "You have a very nice freckled back, Carrie." And she was like, "Bravo, Tommy, bravo."
Yeah. No, and I know Scotty McCoy sent me contact info for E. Eric Anderson, but
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard back, and it's like I don't mind reaching out once or twice, but it gets to the point where it's I don't have time. Eventually, sometimes people get back to me, like Bill Froelich there, who you
Yeah,
connected me with.
yeah.
I messaged him about a month ago, and he just reached out to me this morning, and I was like, okay, yeah, and and I know with me, and I throw the doubt fire challenge out to a lot of people, and that's probably caused me more disdain than anything. But I've always made good
Yeah.
on the charities when I send out to them. Like when they suggest a charity, I make good. but yet it's like it makes them uncomfortable.
I think they get
But
bombarded with requests to donate to
you
charities,
know
you know?
what? You know what?
Yeah.
If people can dump ice water over their head for ALS, a disease they didn't even know what it fucking was, and they can come clean on that, then this shouldn't be a problem. But you know what?
Right.
It's not about the thing. It's because I'm not famous enough. And I know you know what that feels like. It's
I do.
you're not part of the clique. And so when I look at clique, I look at wrestling. And I remember the clique was Shawn Michaels and how many times he got his ass handed to him by people because he played the clique route.
Hmm.
You know, I'm kind of like, I play the clique route. I don't need to be part of your fucking clique. Oh, you're a bunch of famous people in a movie? Okay. Okay. Guess what? You put your pants on one leg at a time too, just like me.
Hmm.
And some of these people, like I worked through the pandemic cleaning, and now I work at a hospital. Some of these people I would like to challenge come in and work the ER,
Hmm.
see how well they fucking do, especially doing terminals. Then they can start measuring their dicks or whatever with me, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But nonetheless, there are some good people out there, and
Yeah.
talk about what's the longest it's taken you to get somebody on the show?
I think it could be Adrian Barbeau. It could be Tessa. Lately, I've been lucky to interview people I've been trying to get since I started. So those two come to mind.
I'd love to
But
get Barbeau back on here and do a better interview with her.
well, okay, so I reached out to her in 2017. Sean Clark was listed as her contact info for interviews on her website, and he told me he had just cut ties with her, and he didn't have any more information for me beyond that, right?
Oh, I didn't know
So
that.
he had just cut ties with her. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't know the story, so
Hmm.
I don't know. So I was always trying to like write on her wall and stuff and say, hey, can you do the podcast? Even when I met her at Monster Palooza in 2019, she just politely laughed and smiled when I said, I'd like to interview you on my podcast, and then nothing came of that. you know so I went on the website early last year, and she had a new publicist name mentioned on there. So I wrote to her, and we rescheduled that interview like maybe four times, I would say, and it finally happened in November of
Mm-hmm.
last year. I listened to maybe 10 interviews she did to make sure nothing's rehashed, right? But it turns out she's always like loving talking about Maud, Grease, and all the Carpenter movies and Cannonball Run and all that stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna add some movies that she doesn't talk about. And she didn't want to talk about Open House. She said that was a bad experience. It was a low budget horror movie she did. And good thing I didn't mention that one where she's in the jungle. I can't remember the name of it. It was like right after it, but it was a pleasant interview. It was basically the same interview she gives. It's like she's reading a script. A lot of these big names, they always talk like they're reading from a script. I rather talk to like journeyman people who are saying it for the first time, and they're brutally honest. They'll mention if they don't like somebody in the
Oh,
business
I
or
love
something.
that. Jim
Yeah,
Wynorski was great for that.
yeah. I
Jim
love
Wynorski was a treat for that.
I love those kind of interviews. Yeah.
Who are the
Um,
best for that? Jim Wynorski comes to mind. Who else doesn't mind getting dirty on details? Because those are entertaining.
I don't remember what Jim and I talked about so long ago, but like let's see, people who are brutally honest. I talked to this guy Christopher Reardon, who I told you about recently. He was in Elvis movies back in the '60s. Okay, he made me cut 5 minutes out of this interview because he was bad mouthing Burt Ward from Batman and bad
Hmm.
mouthing the monkeys. He hated working with those guys. They were young, 20-year-old cocky guys. He was in his early 30s and they worked way differently than he did. And he was like digging dirt on them. It was really, really funny.
I have a hard time. I don't know how to edit because I
Mm-hmm.
had Michael St. Michael's and Sky Eliber on from the Greasy Strangler,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had them on both solo, but I had them on together.
Yeah,
And Sky had sent me a Greasy Strangler beanie, and
right.
I thought, well, how cool to have them on together. This is a problem I
Excuse
had,
me. But
Michael St. Michael's is a very funny guy, very
he is.
outspoken,
I've talked to
and
him. Yeah.
yeah, and he makes a comment where he refers to Sky as an asshole.
Yeah.
But to listen to the interview, you can tell he's joking.
Right.
You can tell. It's like me saying here, like my cat's an asshole. I don't really mean that. I'm just joking. But but he said that, and Sky sends me this private message and asked me to delete that part out. Now it took me a moment to find where it would be, and I
Yeah.
found it, and I got on a piece of paper here about a minute I could cut from it, but it's like, how? I don't know how to cut that. I don't know how to edit that out. And it's like, now what? It's like, you don't want me to post it unless I do. And I'm like, number one, it's like, and he wasn't happy about Michael St. Michael's saying. I can almost guarantee you when he spoke to Michael St. Michael's about it, Michael St. Michael's probably didn't even realize he said it
Mm-hmm.
because you can tell he was just joking, you know.
Right.
And it was a fun interview to do, but when this kind of stuff happens, it's like it makes me very hesitant around certain people,
Yeah.
you know? Like I can tell you right now, yeah, he didn't mean any harm.
Yeah. There's the joke. Yeah. Yeah, I've had people say, this person sexually harassed me, and I haven't really had anyone say cut that out, leave it in, type of a thing, but you know, um, I had that. I told you about that incident when I was interviewing the girl from Porky's, and a certain cast member who turned you down because he wanted to be paid got offended because I was telling the truth about a co-star of his. Sorry, my allergies are flaring up.
It's okay.
Um, I told the truth, and then I was like, I better edit this thing because he might send it to him and I might get sued. So I edited that part out. I was scared, and then next thing I know, I get a notification like that that person who got mad, subscribed to my YouTube channel, and I blocked him after that. I blocked him on everything, social media, YouTube, everything. He was not kidding. He was terrified. I was terrified. I mean, he was serious, So yeah,
Yeah, I was told that he only does it for money, and I'm like, and again, here's my response to that. Well, I don't need to give you any at the cons.
yeah.
Like, I mean, it works both ways.
He
I
was good
work,
to me. I didn't have a problem when I interviewed him, and he didn't charge me. But I'm sure maybe I inspired something there for him to start charging for interviews. Who knows? I don't know, but yeah.
but I
Go ahead.
mean, what gets me is like, I don't mind helping somebody out, and if somebody needs, I mean, I mentioned, of course, the Reggie Bannister situation, which I was
Oh yeah,
happy to support the cause that he had, but
I
that
lost
ended up
respect.
turned
Yeah,
sour.
I lost respect for them.
Well, it wasn't Reggie's fault. It was miscommunication with his wife,
Hmm.
but and the fact that I don't get this shit sent to me by PayPal when somebody refunds something either, but
Well,
I
rumor has it PayPal is going under.
I hope not. It's the way I usually do it.
I hate PayPal. They take forever to send things and processes, and I get all these needless, newsletters and crap. I cannot stand PayPal.
I don't know. Like I don't know what would be the alternative, but
How about just processing your debit cards?
I don't know, but but nonetheless, I think one of the most uncomfortable interviews I did, of course, was Peter New from Black Christmas 2006.
I remember you telling me, yeah.
Yeah, that became hard. Um,
Is that going to come out soon? Because I want to hear that.
I don't know when that's going to come out. It will come out. It's not going to be one I go back and personally listen to, but
Yeah.
but fuck, but what are your cringiest interviews? Ones where you've totally felt uncomfortable with, because that can really stop you in your fucking tracks.
Yeah. Well, going back to Reggie and Gigi, I interviewed Michael Baldwin from Phantasm, the kid, and I mentioned to this them later. To this, I mentioned this later. He's a weird, creepy kind of a dude. He got really uncomfortable because I was asking about his love of jazz music because he plays it, because he's so used to talking about Phantasm, and
You would
he
think
just
he would like that.
you would think he would like that, but he's weird. He is odd, and if I've listened to a couple interviews with other people, he's very condescending and smug, you know like he was with me. That was cringy. I asked him a question. Instead of answering it, he said, "Hey Tommy, what's a podcast?" It's like, can you wait? you know it's weird. And then Nicholas Meyer, who directed Star Trek 2 and 6 and Volunteers with another guest of ours, Ernest Harada, rest in peace. He has no regard for his movie fans. All he cares about are the stupid Sherlock Holmes books he's written. And I was really uncomfortable talking to him. He was a dick.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be hard. I've had some interviews like that, and that can definitely be hard. I know my last one with Debbie Sue Voorhees was a difficult one,
Hmm.
and although my first two with her were really really good. Um, Let me see. But Peter knew was that one was hard. Um, I don't know. Right now, coming to mind, I don't know. But I've had some where it's difficult, and I try to be as innovative when I ask questions as I can,
Hmm.
and sometimes you end up sticking the shovel in and uncovering something that you didn't mean to uncover,
Hmm. Yeah.
and that can happen.
I know, like I told you what happened last week. There was that one guest who was like treating me like I asked her a gotcha question, because I asked her, how she got cast in the movie. And she thought that I had some prior knowledge of scandals happening on set, and it's happened to me a couple times, like I told you that Ginger Allen story. People out there watching this can go listen to that interview. About 30 minutes in, she told me, the brutal honesty of how she got cast in Young Guns 2, but I cut out what she said to me beforehand. She said, how many followers do you have? And I gave her a fake number, and she told me. you know that was strange. That really was.
That's another thing too. That was a problem I had with Jeff Lieberman, who I never had on here.
I've had him on.
He
Yeah.
asked me about and he was at Horrorama one of the years I before I started going, and he's
Hmm.
somebody I won't go meet because of this because not only did he turn me down, but I guess he went on. He said because I didn't have number one, who the fuck cares how many
Yeah,
views I have on something?
exactly.
I'm always happy when people are listening, period. I get some interviews that get lots of views and some that get hardly any. It
Hmm.
happens. But he says to me that he did a podcast or a radio station in New York and blah blah blah. Number one, don't compare me to a commercial radio station.
Hmm.
And number two, You know what? I'm pretty sure he's not going to be the biggest person at a con that I
Yeah,
go
no,
to. And I
no,
can just as easily say, you know what? I don't need to give you money for your picture or your movies or your autograph, you know? I
hmm
just hope I can interview somebody from one of his movies and they able to look like, despite the problems I have with Judy Aronson, it's nice I can watch Friday the 13th, the final chapter, and know that
hmm
Ted White was a genuine, wonderful human being to me,
right,
you know? And before I buy anything of Jeff Lieberman's, I need to have a positive connection to somebody so I can at least say, you know what, that person was nice to me, you know.
right.
But I don't like. I'm not going to accept being compared to a radio station in New York. Don't do that to me because I'm pretty sure those people aren't in your lineup to meet you at a con. But he'd
hmm
gladly take my money.
my experience with him, he didn't ask me how many followers I had. He asked me though, have I actually seen his movies? And I said yes. Just Before Dawn's a favorite slasher movie of mine. Remote Control with Deborah Goodrich from Just One of the Guys. She actually said that he was a great interview and that I should reach out to him. She's great. You should interview her next year when her next book comes out. I'll connect you to.
Okay.
She's wonderful. She sent me like all her books. When they come out the last 5 years. She's wonderful. But it was a pretty weird interview with Jeff. But nothing bad happened or anything.
Yeah.
Hmm
But I didn't need that. If
Yeah.
and people how many followers or whatnot, sometimes I can scathe around that. Tony Basil, I was able to do that,
Oh
and
God.
I had her on. But I've gotten that before, and first off, I don't know what my audience is like. I
hmm
have no idea how many people listen to me. Maybe nobody. Like
Yeah.
I remember I've had Louis Cerez on,
hmm
who is one of the promoters from Horrorama, and he does a podcast called the Suspect Podcast because he was part of founders of Suspect Video, and he and his friend Glenn do the Suspect Podcast, and I remember Lewis, God bless him, he wasn't at Horrorama because he had COVID that weekend. What a time to get
hmm
it!
Yeah.
I love Lewis, but Glenn was there, and I remember telling him, I said, "Yeah, I loved your podcast," and he said this jokingly, but he says, we're always surprised. We always think that we're the only ones there, and like we're
hmm
just talking to each other. We never know if people are listening, and that's kind of with me too. You know what? I do this for fun. If people don't want to
Yeah.
listen, don't listen.
Yeah.
This has been another thing too. It's been brought to my attention with regards to well, I've been told this about the Jason Bradford
Yeah.
situation
Yeah.
that his interviews are, I've been told, interviews on the run. I guess one of his criticism is mine are too long. Well, if you don't want to listen to 5 hours and 20 minutes of Paul M. Sampson, don't fucking listen to it. But those that like Blade Runner and Conan the Barbarian, they'll
hmm
want to hear it.
Paul and I were scheduled a couple weeks ago, but a hurricane happened in Florida, and so he's got like shitty power right now. But we're eventually going to make it happen. And I told him, I said, I can't do 5 hours like you did with Greg, but I'll do 2 hours and 45 minutes at least. And he said, deal. Yeah.
Block off 5 hours, man, because he's a talker.
Yeah.
But you know what? Fine, But I love that that was a criticism. Greg's too long. We're better than him because ours are short.
Oh, Jesus.
We're better than him. We're
He
so
actually
much
said this?
better. No, but I'm just making fun of the attitude that I'm sensing from it.
Okay. Okay.
You know, I don't say that I'm better than any other podcast, but I'm going to tell you, if you're measuring me by the length of my interview, first off, and then people say, well, you could have the guests back.
Mhm,
Well, it was Dick Miller passed away, so there was no way I was going to have him back.
mhm.
Daria Nicolodi passed away. I wasn't going to be able to have her back.
I want to hear that interview, by the way. I'm,
I
I'm
know
just
it's one of
looking
my
forward to it.
2020 ones, and
Mhm.
that's one of the ones I gotta get my brother to get up. You know,
You
he's
should
in
have him.
charge of that. But
You should have him do that for Halloween. I mean, that would be great to hear that.
well, it took me. I reached out to Daria Nicolodi in 2016,
Hmm.
and she was polite, but she turned me down. I don't know what her situation was with Daria Argento, but she got tired of talking about the seven movies she did with him, and I was heartbroken about it. But what had happened is that Chris and Lewis got Lamberto Bava at Horrorama in 2019. That was their headliner for that year, and I haven't had Lamberto on here, but I was remembering that Daria did one of his movies, and she was also in Mario Bava's last movie, Shock. So I pitched again and tying in the anniversary for Deep Red, which I thought was her best work for Argento, was in Deep Red.
Hmm.
She got back to me, and I remember the quote: "This interview will likely never happen." But I could tell I had her attention with Lamberto Bava. And I remember she said to me, she said she'll do the interview on two conditions. One, she wants to talk about her love for Mario Bava. And two, she wanted to talk about Asia Argento, her daughter. I said, absolutely.
Hmm.
And she accepted my questions about Deep Red. I kept the Argento stuff as small as I could,
Right.
but I did Deep Red. I had to talk about some stuff with that, and she was very good, cordial with that. I mentioned Suspiria briefly, and I mentioned Phenomena with because I wanted to mention a young Jennifer Connelly. But other
Right.
than that, I backed off the Argento stuff, and she was very apologetic towards the end of it, and she enjoyed
Hmm.
the experience. And I was like, I was so sad when she passed, but I'm so glad she gave me the chance, you know.
Right.
She was very, very nice, and she was in Florence, Italy. I don't know what made her pass away, but um, but I was so glad to have got her. But these are people I can't get a second interview with. So
Yeah.
when I do an interview, I take what I can get. And then if I get a chance to have them back on, great,
Yeah.
great, great.
I've had a couple people say to me, "Why are you having me back on? We covered so much, last
I've
time."
had that too.
Yeah. Diane Franklin, she's been on 8 times, right? And when she was on last year, I said to her, why do you keep coming on my show? I'm glad you do it and we've become such good friends, but what is it about me that you like? I wanted to know this because of my anniversary show that I was going to be doing last May, which I put an excerpt of this conversation in there. And she said, it's funny when you invited me back on, I think the third time, I was a little creeped out because I was thinking to myself, why does he want to talk to me more? Because we've covered so much, right? But she said, I really opened my heart to her in that third one, and then next thing you know, she was like, I'll come on anytime he wants, and she's been on 8 times now. That warmed my heart when she said that, and it's true. We've talked about so many things and so many of the same things we've rehashed, but the conversation's always good, and she's just a bubbly spirit, she's become like a fairy godmother to me, which is a funny thing to say.
I've had her on once, just the
Hmm.
once.
Yeah.
And I was happy to get her that once. But here's another
Yeah.
thing too. I got as much as I could out of her on that one interview. I'm not going to cut it down because somebody from said podcast or some well, millennial doesn't have the
Yeah.
fucking attention span. Not my problem. Don't listen. I don't make money at this. Don't fucking
Yeah. Same
listen.
here. Yeah.
Yeah,
Same
don't
here.
fucking listen. You don't want to listen to 5 hours of Paul M. Sampson? Fuck off. Go away. Go away.
Yeah.
I make good money at the hospital here, so I mean,
Mhm.
but nonetheless, I don't know how we got into that tangent, but yeah, there's situations like that where if I get somebody on another time, great. Nancy
Mhm.
McLaughlin's been on here 5 times, and a lot of times with her, it's just us talking because we're friends, you know? It's
Yeah,
just, yeah. And
That's like me and Julia Montgomery and Lynn Griffin. I mean, we're truly friends, you know, and I can be as politically incorrect with them as possible, and they're not going to be embarrassed by it because
hmm
they know how I am. You know, Julia, you know, I got to have dinner with her in L.A. a couple of years ago, and it was great. My mom embarrassed me a little bit because that's my mother, but it was fun. We had a blast. Julia's got such an infectious laugh. You know, laughter is the best medicine, and I love infectious laughter, and I love making people laugh. You know,
hmm
it warms my heart whenever I can make somebody laugh.
Yeah. And anyway, though, who have you had uh guests have you had dinners with at these cons? That must be a lot of fun because it shows that they're comfortable with you. Who have you had met and had dinner with?
Well, these dinners did not happen because of cons. They just happened because I happened to be in Los Angeles.
Oh,
Um,
wonderful. That's even better.
yes. Let's see. I had lunch with Terry Bolo, and her and I are very close too.
I've had her on a couple times.
Yep. And Julia, Marie Lauren, who I connected you with. Um, who else? I'm trying to think. Um, remember, I was supposed to meet up with a couple of people that ended up canceling because of something happening. I remember I was supposed to have, I think I was supposed to have lunch with Juliana Donald, who played Jenny in the Muppets Take Manhattan once. Yeah, and then something happened there. But like, you know, just those people, you know, and you know, a couple of celebrities that let me hung around their table, you know, and like, you know, bring them something or something like that, you know. And yeah, I mean, I love my life, Greg. What can I say? I love my
You
life.
should. You should.
Yeah.
I always meet Lisa for dinner when I go to Toronto,
Hmm.
and she and I and Leslie met on my last day there this
Hmm.
past, and we went to a restaurant that, well, I'd never been to before. So the
Hmm.
three of us went. Lisa and I met up with Bruce Pittman at one. I think it was a
Love
pub or
Bruce.
something.
Bruce is a
Bruce is
good guy.
great. I love
Yeah.
Bruce. I love Bruce.
Yeah.
And he showed up at Horrorama this year. He wasn't scheduled, but he just showed up and was sitting and mingling with Leslie, and
Hmm.
it was just great to see him. But I've met him and Lisa and Sean and Lynn and I all met the first year I was down,
Hmm.
and they weren't at the con; they were at Horror Hound, but they'd asked Lisa when I was leaving, and then Lisa got the message to me, and we figured out a day and time to do that before I left. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's always fun. And I know
Yeah.
Nancy said if I'm ever in California, whenever that may be, if that may be, I don't have a passport. She said that she'd love to meet up with me. I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure Judy Aronson's not high on the list of, she doesn't want to meet me for, yeah.
No,
No, she
no.
doesn't. She doesn't want to meet me for lunch, dinner,
She doesn't like
supper.
you, Greg. I'm sorry to say.
She doesn't even want to meet me for. She doesn't want to meet me for brunch. She doesn't even want to meet me for a snack. Yeah,
Yeah.
just doesn't want to meet me because she thinks I suck. I'm just a mean person. I am.
Yeah.
But hey, Nancy McLaughlin likes me though. She wants to meet me. So I'm like, okay, you know, I'll take it. I'll take it.
I just thought of another one.
Yeah.
Stephanie Hodge. She's a stand-up comedian legend who was on a show called Unhappily Ever After. It was from the same guys who did Married with Children. Her and I are really close. She's been on probably 8 times by now. Our conversations go over 2 hours because we're just talking away. And I had dinner with her at Shakey's Pizza. Her, and my friend, and we had a blast. Um, yeah, but there's a lot of people that I'm hoping to meet next time I go to LA. Once the world is safer and LA is safer, in this whole pandemic time, there's people I want to get together with. You know, but yeah.
Who are some people you want that are on your list to meet at a con?
Let's see. Um, let's see. Well, there's a con next weekend that I'm probably not going to be able to make now because of some circumstances. But Vanessa Shaw from Hocus Pocus, her mom, Susan Demanti, is a friend of mine,
I
and she's
would
been
love
on.
to talk to her about Eyes Wide Shut.
I'd love to talk to her about that and Corky Romano and Ladybugs with
I
Rodney.
hated Corky
Yeah,
Ramona. What a shitty movie.
full disclosure, she had a crush on Chris Kattan, and I think she was in a relationship and he was in a relationship, so it never consummated or anything like that. But her mother, Susan Demanti, is from a horror movie called Blood Sabbath in the early '70s,
Mhm.
and The Wilderness Family, and she knew Buck Flower very well because he was in those movies with her. I'd like to meet her, Vanessa Shaw. Um, I'd love to meet anybody from Fright Night, whether it's Billy Ragsdale or Amanda Bierce, or I've met Chris Sarandon. He's a great guy.
I would like to get an interview from that movie. It's my favorite vampire movie, and I am just struggling
Well,
to connect.
Jonathan's on Facebook, Jonathan Stark, who played Billy.
Yeah, he was so funny in House too.
Yeah, he's on Facebook. Reach out to
Is he?
him. I
Okay.
talked to him. Yeah,
Okay. But I love Fright Night. It's my favorite vampire movie,
yeah.
you know. Um yeah, so what was I gonna ask? I got completely sidelined here. My thoughts. Um and I had a good question too. Shit.
Bucket
Oh,
list, yes, something like that.
no, it
Maybe.
wasn't, but keep going on to bucket list guests. Keep the conversation rolling. Yeah,
Let's
bucket
see.
list guests for podcast. Who are people that you want to have on that you haven't yet?
I've been going back and forth with Valerie Landsberg from the TV show version of Fame. I had a huge crush on her. To me, she was the best actress on that show in terms of talent, the way she sang. I just I'm head over heels in love with Valerie Landsberg. I always have been. I want her badly, and hopefully it's going to happen. Um, I want to get a Bengal on. I'm a huge Bengals fan. They're like my favorite band. We got to talk about the Gina Shock interview before we wrap this up. I'll tell you about that. From the Go Go's. Um, let's see, who else would I like to have? Ileana Douglas. She's an old Hollywood buff. And she was in Cape Fear and Goodfellas. I'd love to talk to her about that stuff. Um, People I'm blanking on, I'm sure. I'd love to get Nancy Allen, but it seems like she doesn't want to do it for whatever reason. So sad. But
Here, I figured out what the question was, and this was kind of on my mind throughout this podcast, and I kept it
mm-hmm,
kept in and out, in and out, in and out. Um, Dealing with, and I don't deal with this much,
mm-hmm,
but when I do, it's like if you don't like it, fuck off.
right.
Dealing with trolls.
Oh, you mean like listeners, who comment on the videos, that kind of a troll?
Yeah.
It's funny. I ever since I've gotten better as an interviewer, I don't get them as often anymore. But occasionally someone will troll like an old video, you know, and make smart ass comments like, you really need some practice, bro, with your interview skills or something like that. But I have people reaching out to me, saying, "Hey, I want to do your podcast" or something like that, and they're just, fucking weirdo, horror fans, you know. Um, I remember, oh God, in 2018, I almost stopped the podcast completely and never did again because of this. There was a guy who reached out to me. He wanted two of my guest numbers, right? Because he claimed he was a podcaster. I looked him up. He was like a DJ based in Philly or something like that, right? And he claimed he knew the two people and he was good friends with one of them. And I was just like, if you're good friends with this person, why don't you ask her, what the number is, And he was just a complete weirdo. And I made a slight boom boom when I interviewed her in 2017. Her number was visible for a little bit, and I had to go back and blur it out. And he was like gonna he was gonna tell her about it. He was gonna send her the video unless I didn't do something about it, right? So I did something about it, and then I blocked him on all social media, right? Yes, he contacted me a year ago on new accounts and said, "Hey, I'm sorry for blackmailing you, da 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 da, you know." And I was just worried about so and so. I was afraid that people were going to call her and blah blah blah. And so then he got really intrusive with me. Um, I posted some personal stuff, and he was like trying to offer condolences or whatever, and so I had to block him again. And I swear to God, if I ever see him again, I will block him right away if he contacts me again, right? And guess what? Another guest of ours knows this person too, and she actually had to block him recently because he got creepy. Yeah,
You'll have to tell me privately who this
I
person
will.
is.
I
Yeah,
will. I will.
yeah, because
Hmm.
I know for me it doesn't happen a lot, but I remember with when I interviewed Michelle Mayrink,
Yeah.
which I was happy to do, but this guy posted this comment, and I saw his YouTube. He was okay. He
Hmm.
posted this comment telling me that saying that that's how lousy I am, and that I never asked any original questions or any good questions. First off, this guy was a musician who sings other people's fucking songs
Right.
because he's not talented enough to come up with his own shit.
Hmm.
And number two, I think I asked her some pretty fucking good questions. Like, for example, what was it like going from Valley Girl to being the starring role in Joy of Sex? I think I asked her some pretty good question. I listened to that interview and was like, yeah, I think I handled that very well. But
Hmm.
you get some people every now and again, Um, oh, and I also had another one too. Some fucking prick goes on to
Hmm.
my first Tracy Savage interview
Hmm.
and talks about the fact that he's criticizing that I had to stop listening about 31 minutes in because he wouldn't stop oogling her and blah, 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 blah. You could
Yeah.
tell she was uncomfortable. Yeah, she's so fucking uncomfortable she could back two more times, jerk off.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she's number one, she felt flattered that
Hmm.
I had a big crush on her growing up. She
Hmm.
still looks lovely. But if this guy's so fucking good, do a better job.
Hmm.
But they're really good at throwing their weight around and
Yeah.
yep.
When I did my second interview with Tiffany Helm, right, I gave her some way too much information, which she told me like in the interview, please edit that later, right? And I had no problem doing that, right? But I also had some other too much information that she could handle, right? And some guy addressed it like recently, and so I went back and edited that because I didn't want anybody, commenting on that again. I haven't asked Tiffany back only because we've covered, everything and stuff like that. But Tiffany loves me, I interviewed her best friend Danny Dietz, who was the dead girl in River's Edge, and her and I, we give each other shit all the time, Tiffany and I, because she's a vegan, I'm not, and everything's good there, and yeah, I mean these guys, they don't know what they're talking about, and they're just sad, lonely, pathetic losers living in their mom's basement, you know.
Yep.
hmm
So I look at it this way, if you don't
hmm
like what I do, then like it's not like I'm reinventing the wheel. Don't listen.
Yeah.
I don't get paid to do this. I don't care. Don't fucking listen. But yeah, you get those people out there because you probably had it more than me because I know I've saw comments or two.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's what I was going to ask you.
Okay.
You posted something not too long ago, and I find it funny you get people that turn you down based on the fact that your show's called Splat from the Past.
Yes.
I don't understand what they're offended by.
Yeah, I have no idea. It's funny. I had a sex expert turn me down because of the title "Splat from the Past," which is crazy and ironic, especially since she's very, very dirty. Um, but yeah, that person was, of course, person you've had on, Amelia Kincaid, the most recent one. Yeah, I was just like, she's like, telling me, you know, you, change the name of your podcast or something like that, and then donate $150 to my go to Africa trip, and shit. I was like, go to hell, like, you know, that's the kind of stuff you run into sometimes.
Wow.
Hmm
Yeah, I had her on. I almost lost her because I ended up rescheduling her like
hmm
3 times because I work at the hospital here as a
hmm
COVID cleaner.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, like I get called a lot. This is the first night I've had off in like 7 days.
hmm
I get called a lot, and I'm one of the few people that likes doing overnights. You
hmm
know, so I'm not going to say no to them because I'm getting paid um, $20 an hour to work there at night. So I'm like, yeah, yeah, I'm there. But
Yeah.
she listened to my podcast, and I think she listened to the interview I did with David Howard Thornton from Terrifier, who's a friend of
hmm
hers, and she liked it, and she came on. I had a good interview with her. Um, again, I like her, but it's another one of these things, like where I offer to make a donation for a doubt for a challenge. And the thing, people don't want to see me do this, but
hmm
like I remember Sandy Johnson posted her doubt for a challenge on during the pandemic and to cheer people up, and people loved it.
hmm
I find it funny how people just can't grasp that. And I throw my hands up in the air because I've dealt with depression, so have you.
hmm
But I'm not going to sit back anymore and let people tell me I don't matter because of my status in life. I know my coworkers at the hospital love me because
Right.
they know I'll help them out. I know they're not famous people, but they count in my book.
hmm
And there's people I've interviewed that appreciate me because they know I'm genuine. But then you
hmm
get other people out there that,
hmm
you know,
And I,
first
oh,
first
I was
off,
gonna
if
go
first
ahead.
off, if somebody doesn't want to do the doubt fire face challenge, say no,
Hmm
but don't wait until after I give to your fucking charity.
hmm
That's not fair to me. But I like it how these people think it's fair because I don't matter, status, but I've been turned down on it, and I had no qualms with people have turned me down. But I do have
hmm
qualms with people that turn me down after saying they would do it and after I gave to their charity. That I have a problem with.
Yeah, I've had a couple people ask for money, but one I'll mention, and I'll always tell this story. I wanted to interview Tammy Aaron, who played Pippi Longstocking in the '80s, right?
Yeah.
So I sent her a message on Twitter, and we had it scheduled. And then the day of, she had to reschedule. Okay, I didn't hear from her for an entire month. And then when I did hear from her, she said, "I'll give you 20 minutes for $400." And I said, "You are out of your fucking mind." We agreed on an hour, and it was for free. And she blocked me on Twitter, and then I called her out on her Facebook page. She blocked me there, and I was like, "Holy shit!" She thinks that she's the queen shit, you know?
Wow. I
Yeah.
don't get that. I know I had a guest on here who I'd interviewed for free back in 2017, and I reached out to him for the
I,
anniversary of a particular movie. You know
yeah.
what I'm talking about. And
Yeah.
I think his
One of my
wife,
favorite guests, by the way. He's one
oh,
of
a
my favorite
lovely
guests.
guy, and I don't think
Yeah.
this was him. I think this was his wife.
Yeah.
Said he'd do the show for half hour, $800 for half hour. I'm like, I had him for free back in 2017. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
What are they on?
Yeah. Sad.
Yeah. Like for frig's sake, I had Ralph Bakshi for free. I had Dick Miller for free.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I had this one guy on last October. I won't say his name. He was in a creature feature horror movie in the early 70s. Um, he did the interview mainly because I interviewed Slava, who directed Liquid Sky.
oh, I love that movie.
Yeah. And he usually charges for interviews. And I told him I don't monetize my show, you know. So we did the interview, and then right at the end, he said to me, "Are you sure are you sure you can't pay me? You don't monetize your show. Why don't you do it? And I told him and he was like, "All right." And then I didn't notify him that the interview was ready, or I didn't friend request him because I was afraid he was going to start that shit again.
Yeah. Yeah, because and I've heard this too. If studios or whatever start to get greedy and they start this whole charging people for interviews,
Yeah.
here's my response to that. I was living my life before the podcast.
Yeah.
I will live it after. But I'll tell you one thing, I could go into the hospital here and I could select pretty much any of my coworkers, and I could probably get a good story out of them about
Hmm.
stuff they seen, weird shit they seen. Like I could tell stories of being in the fucking ER overnight
Hmm.
about people going in the rubber room, you know? And I can get interesting story. Yeah, I know. It's not going to get the big hits and likes, but I find it funny. It's they think it's quantity over quality.
Hmm.
You know, I don't. I mean, hits, likes, and views are nice,
Hmm.
but if that's all you're doing it for, it's like you don't need to be in it.
I don't do it for that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
you know,
It's an
I
interesting thing.
yeah, like I got a lot of guests lined up to interview that I'm looking forward to. Some of them are going to get a lot of views, and some of them are not. And sometimes it's a surprise who gets views and who doesn't. Some people you think are going to get a lot of views don't, and then
Hmm.
there's some people that don't surprise you get views. But then there are some people that completely out of left field get views. And I also had somebody contact me recently. Yeah, actually, he's contacted me twice now,
Hmm.
and I had to approach my brother about this, and he told me don't do it.
Huh.
A guy wanted me that said that, and he showed me proof of this. He could get me like when my interview with Jimmy Presley, God bless Jimmy Presley, but when
Hmm.
it's gets 431 views in a small amount of time, and a mainstream in the genre person takes weeks to crack three digits.
Hmm.
Okay, something strange. So this guy had got this interview with Jimmy Presley, a lot of views. I'm like, okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, a lot of connections. And he said that he could do this if I pay him odd amount of money. And he said that this could lead to me being able to monetize. Well, I showed this to my brother and he said no, because what he's
Hmm.
got is a bunch of bots.
Yeah.
They're not real people.
Right.
And he said, what you want is real subscribers, not
Right.
bots. And I was like, yeah, okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
It's, yeah. And he approached me recently about it. He's polite about it, but Like I said, I've interviewed magician Ryan Brown 3 times. Love
Hmm.
Ryan, but his the act he did at Horrorama's got 3.1K views because of this guy and his bots.
Hmm.
Well, what about the 3 interviews I did with Ryan?
Hmm.
So something there doesn't add up. So when somebody says that to me, I'm like, okay, you
I
know,
I interviewed Raven Delacruz, from Up, the Russ Meyer movie,
I tried to
and
get her. I never heard back.
well, you'll be on online with her for a while. She's a talker. I got like 50K um, views, and I got another guy I know. He's got like probably 400K views on her because phew, apparently she's loved by people. It's crazy.
How do you get her on the show? What avenue should I take?
She's on Facebook. Just send her a message.
Tried.
She may ask you to, like, own the master of the interview, but you can always decline and she'll still do it.
What do you mean
She,
own the master?
oh, she's, from that old school, mentality of show business. She'd like to own the interview. Like back in the day, they used to say, "Oh yeah, let me own the rights to this or that."
I'm not gonna let them do that.
No, no, no.
Have you? This is another thing too. This doesn't happen to me a lot, but I remember,
Mm.
you get people that want you to take the interview down.
Oh
This
yeah.
happened to me with I interviewed Sean Richards and Kevin Feeps, who did that Friday the 13th Part 3 memorial documentary,
Okay.
because I guess the house got burnt down or something. And he did a great documentary,
Mm.
and it had Tracy Savage in it, it had Paul Crackton in it.
Mm.
They talked about Richard Brooker and stuff like that. Okay.
Mm.
It and then he approached me and asked me take it down, and I'm like, because I guess he had falling out with Kevin Feeps. I don't know the details.
Mm.
And then he says, he could connect me with other people. I'm like, number one, I don't know what Kevin Feeps thinks about it. I don't know what their falling out is. I don't care.
Mm.
But here's the thing, I took time out of my day to interview you two,
Mm.
you know? So I left it up. And I'll say this another thing too. When people talk about, and I heard this about the guy that wanted to be paid,
Mm.
say that they're taking time out of their schedule. I'm going to address this again. I work at the hospital here, and I'm going to
Mm.
tell you it's work.
Right.
So when I do an interview, I'm taking time too,
Right.
and that's a point. I know it's okay for some of them to diminish me because I'm not in the cover of such and such a magazine.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to take that. I didn't take it from 13 Fanboy,
Mm.
and I'm not taking it from anybody else. I do an important job at the hospital. I'm appreciated for it,
Mm.
and so I take time out too. If somebody doesn't want to do my show, don't do my show. But don't play off like you're somehow superior to me
Yeah.
because you got a cult following.
Yeah.
You put your clothes on the same way I do. You put your
Yeah.
pants on one leg at a time.
The only difference is when they put their pants on, they make gold records.
Well,
That's the cowbell sketch on Saturday Night Live.
oh, is that?
Yeah.
It is what it is. I had a low self-esteem growing up. I'm now getting to the point where I can look myself in the mirror and say I like myself.
Hmm.
I know who I am, and I got a good job. I got a good podcast. And there's people out there that really appreciate me. Lisa Langlois been wonderful to me. Nancy McLaughlin's been wonderful to me.
Hmm.
I've had other people that were great with me as well. And then I've had some miscommunications with others as well.
Right.
But
Same here.
yeah.
Mhm.
And again, going back to Judy Aronson, I'm sad that didn't work out,
Yeah.
you know? But I'll tell you one thing, if somebody had recommended me to somebody and it was somebody I trusted,
Mhm.
bragged me up to somebody, and they reached out to me, I would have reacted quite a bit differently,
Right.
you know? But I don't know. I would love to be able to make amends with 13 Fanboy, and I'd love to make amends with Judy Aronson, but I can't see that happening.
Mhm.
My story with Rob Mahoney,
Mhm.
he and I had a big falling out. He was in the hospital one night, and I guess I got word of it, and I just reached out, asked him how he was, and said, "Look, I know we had our differences, but I hope you're feeling better." And he just kind of reached out to me, and we just chatted
Mhm.
because he appreciated the fact that I took the time to say, "Hey, how are you? I know we've had our differences, but how are you?"
Mhm.
And same thing with you. We've had our differences, and we were able to make connection. You know,
Mhm.
13 Fanboy, there won't be a connection again because there's more than one people, and because of
Yeah.
the click mentality, you know.
Mhm.
And unbeknownst to them, I'm fine with that. I had somebody, actually, I'm going to say it. Jason Bradford said it. He said, "This whole thing can affect celebrities coming on your show."
Ugh.
Well, my record number of interviews was last year 144. When
Yeah.
I interviewed Wayne Stamm through you from The Graduate, he was number
Mhm.
145.
Mhm.
I'm going to have over 150 before I leave for Niagara Falls. By the end of the year, I would say I well past my record.
Mhm.
Now, if they want to sit back and try to sabotage me, some will listen, some won't. Those that listen, fuck them. I don't need them on.
Yeah. Fuck them. Fuck
You
them.
know, I like I said, I have no problem doing an interview with somebody. And like I said, if I don't have an interview, go do my job at the hospital and earn some cash. I'm good. I'm pretty content,
That's good.
as I hope you are as well.
I am. I've been the most content in the last year that I were. Even before the pandemic, I was so insecure, man. Like, I've learned a lot since the pandemic, and I've been so lucky to be very generous and help other podcasters like yourself and Lisa Everett's, who I connected you with. By the way, she wants to do your show. Let her know, when she can
Who
do it.
now? What does she do?
Okay, so I did her podcast earlier today. Um, it's Ninja Pop podcast. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, Ninja Pop, and she likes to talk about cult movies. And
Okay.
her friend Patrick, they just talk about cult movies, and every once in a while they interview somebody from them. And she's a lot of fun. She's like a little ball of energy, and she's fun.
Tell her to send me a friend's request and tell her to send me a message and we'll connect.
I think you two are connected on Facebook, but neither of you have set up the interview yet.
Lisa Everett?
Yeah, Lisa Everett's
Let me see, because
blonde hair. Yeah.
Lisa Everett, I'm gonna look her up because I don't okay, yeah, we are friends on Facebook.
Hmm.
Oh, I love her cover picture. She's got a great cover picture, that Halloween cover picture.
Yeah, she always does these like really elaborate pictures on social media. Hmm.
Okay. No, we haven't connected yet. Okay, okay.
Okay.
All right. No, I'm open to that.
Yeah,
No,
she's a lot of fun.
I'm open to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Nope, I'll do that. And
And then there's another. Oh, go ahead.
she does talks about cult movies and stuff. Okay, I'll have her on.
Yeah.
I'm open
Yeah.
to that. Why not?
Yeah. She's met celebrities at cons and become friends with them too. So she's got her stories as well.
Does she have somebody that says, "Oh, you called me 22 times"? My warped opinion. Oh,
She's got, let me just say, she's got stories. That's all.
somebody said that you called me 22 times. I
Yeah.
was told to say that. Actually, that person knows I didn't call 22 times, and I don't even think it's that person that said it.
Yeah.
I think you and I know who they perpetuated that.
Yes.
No woman would take that, so I don't buy that at all. I don't think Judy Aronson's that stupid. I think she's a little smarter than that.
Yeah.
Yep. Actually, it's strange. She hasn't blocked me on any social media. I checked
Mhm.
once. Maybe she has by now. I don't care, but
Mhm.
the other person did.
Yeah.
Person perpetuating it. But Lisa Everett, I'd love to hear her
Mhm.
stories of being accused of this and accused of that. And
Oh no, no, she was never accused of anything, but like she has stories about, weird celebrity encounters and stuff like
oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That should be an interesting talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, my weird celebrity encounters just happen behind my back.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, you said there was somebody else as well.
There's another podcaster, Curtis Langclose. He has a podcast called Retro Zest that I listen to. He's a Southern gentleman from Georgia. I told him about Sonny Davis when he was doing his Fast Times interviews because he got Kelly on, and the guy who sings "Raised on the Radio" in the movie, Rob Fahey from the Ravens. He interviewed him too, and he's got a bunch of James Bond people coming up and stuff. He's a good interviewer, and he's great.
I his name's escaping me. You connected me the guy that was singing in
Oh,
the
Reeve,
prom.
David Brandt, Reeves
Yeah,
Nevo.
I
Yeah,
I'm about to schedule with him. I He reached
yeah.
out to me while I was in Toronto,
Hmm.
and we haven't booked it yet, but we're working on it.
Hmm.
Now the Pat Benatar girl's never gotten back to me.
April. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I think I hit her up on LinkedIn and she responded.
I've never ever reached out to people on LinkedIn. Do you have to have an account for that?
Yeah, sign up. It's free. They have the premium option, but I ignore that. And you can find lots of people on there. I've gotten so many people on LinkedIn over the last couple of years. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I
All
found
right.
Tracy Crisp from Casino Royale. She was my 1600th interview a month ago. Got her. I found God, who else did I find? Um the girl with the gummy bears and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Polly Noonan. I found her.
I never got anybody from Ferris Bueller.
Oh yeah, I've talked to the snooty Major D, Jonathan Schmock, this summer. He was great. Yeah. Stephanie Blake, the singing nurse. I had her on. Yeah. Katie Barberi, the girl who looks annoyed in class, who was Tangerine in the Garbage Pail Kids movie. She's a good friend of mine. We were supposed to get together in LA last time, but it didn't happen. So
Yeah. Is there any movies that you wanted to get people from that you've just never been able to get anybody from? Because for
sure
me, I
enough.
know when I go to Frightmare in the Falls, I'm hoping to solve that with American Werewolf in London and The Omen. Now, I did have Alan Ford on, who was the cab driver in American Werewolf in London, but
Uh
my main conversation with him was playing Bricktop and Snatch. Because
huh.
to me, that was Alan Ford at his best. We
Hmm.
mentioned American Werewolf in London, but I was mainly invested in talking about Snatch, but
Yeah, I need to lay on my side here. Um, there's a obscure horror movie that Tom Savini did the makeup for in 1981, right after the burning. It was called The Prowler. I cannot
hmm
find, or I can find a couple of people, but I can't get them, to respond.
hmm
Uh, Tom Bray, who was in the movie, he later did that show Riptide um, with Perry King from class of 1984.
hmm
Um, I reached out to him, no response. I reached out to Christopher Goutman, who was in the movie. and some girl, I can't remember her name, but she blocked me. Like she didn't even respond to my message. She just blocked me. She read it and blocked me. I can't get anybody from The Prowler, but I would like to get someone from that movie.
Hmm.
And what else? I'm sure there's some other movies I'm blanking on right now, but I've gotten pretty much everybody I wanted from everything I like, you know. But that's one that I haven't been able to crack that nut.
Yeah, another one too, like, it's hit or miss for Italian horror, I'll tell you that. Suspiria, I've gotten 4 people. I've been very lucky with that one.
Mhm,
With Daria, that I was able to crack with Deep Red,
mhm.
but I think you had somebody from what was, the Argento film from 1980? What was that you interviewed somebody from?
Oh, I've had two people from Inferno, Liam
Oh, yeah?
McCloskey, Liam McCloskey, and Irene Miracle.
Are they good?
Yes, very good.
Okay, I'll have to reach out. I know I reached This happened a couple times. I reached out to the kid
Mhm.
who you see in Suspiria, and he's also
Yeah,
the kid in Deep Red.
he was on my list, but then I realized, he may not speak English, so I
He
crossed
does
him off my
not.
list.
I
Yeah.
reached out to him, and I think he must have a translator thing on
Mhm,
Facebook or something, because I got a message saying doesn't speak English. So I was like,
mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
The other one, I had somebody from Tenebrae respond.
Mhm,
Same deal.
mhm.
Didn't speak English, and I'm like, and I had the same deal with Twitch of the Death Nerve, Bay of Blood last year for its anniversary. Person did not speak English, and I'm like, it makes it hard. And I've had situations like that. I tried to get somebody from some of Louis Buñuel's movies as well, like
Who?
the Discreet Charm of the Boziozis, and that became
Mm.
hard because that came out the year I was born. Or
Oh,
somebody from Belle de Jour, he was a
yeah, I
great,
remember you mentioned. Yeah, I remember you mentioned that one.
I know Catherine Deneuve is in that, but she
Mm,
might be a little hard for me to get.
yeah,
But unless you got child actors, it's hard to get people
yeah.
living unless you're doing a tribute interview with somebody that's passed.
I've gotten more child actors than anybody from many different things. Yeah, and child actors are very interesting. They had hard lives, and their personalities are very, how should I say? It's like they're still childlike in many ways because they never fully grown up. It's kind of sad. But there's a couple child actors I'm very good friends with. Holly Fields is a good friend of mine. She dated Corey Haim actually after Lala, and
Okay.
she's got some great stories. I recommend her.
Okay.
Maybe I can connect you to.
All right.
Um, let's see, Allison Croft. I do want you to connect with her. She played Baby McNulty in Trancers, the Charlie Band sci-fi movie.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's a great
I
movie.
haven't, but I got Trancers 2 here on Blu-ray, which came in
She
the
she's in
bag,
it.
the Horrorama grab bag, and I've never opened it.
She's in it. She's in part two. She was 15 or 16 when she did part two, but she was 9 when she did the first one. And yeah, she's basically possessed by a man. You know, it's like, he's incognito in a little girl's body. That's the joke. And it's what's his name? Art LaFleur. I interviewed him before he died. And
Hmm.
Alison Croft, yeah, she's a good friend too. And yeah, child actors sometimes are the way to go because they're still young and alive, you know.
And I would love to get people from Hitchcock movies.
Mm,
I lucky to do the tribute to him with his granddaughter, and I was lucky
mm,
to have Marley Renfro Peterson
mm,
on for Psycho, but those are also hard. I think there's one person
mm.
still alive from Rear Window, and that was my favorite Hitchcock movie. and I can't find contact info. And since he's in his mid to late 90s, it probably is bleak anyway.
Yeah.
You know, like I even tried for Frenzy this year, and I had
Mhm.
no luck.
Yeah, I tried to. I couldn't find anybody. My friend, I told you to contact Beverly Washburn from Old Yeller. She
Hmm.
put me. She gave me Jeannie Russell, who was on Dennis the Menace. She was in The Birds. I'm going to reach out to her for the 60th anniversary next year. So,
Ah, well, I had a lot of children in it. Speaking of child actors,
oh yeah.
yep. But and there's other ones too, like the remake of the 1978 remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I love that movie, but connecting with people from that is hard.
Mhm.
So like I look through my Blu-ray collection, I'm like, I want to have more of a personal connection with
Yeah.
said movie to make the movie enjoyable. And it's like, can I find somebody from this or this or this to make the experience watching it even more heightened,
Hmm.
you know? And so that's one of the things I do when I look at my collection here. And you know, and lately I've also been kind of lucky. This has happened to me twice recently,
Hmm.
where I've did a couple of interviews for movies that are currently playing.
Right.
That hasn't happened until this year. I got somebody from Barbarian, and I got somebody from Pearl, and I was like, wow, I couldn't believe it. But speaking of which, 2022 has been a great year for horror. Really good year for horror. You know, I enjoyed Scream 5 a lot more than a lot of the sequels.
Hmm.
And as I love the fact that Jenna Ortega pretty much stole the movie from the main players.
Hmm.
I saw X 4 times in the theater, loved it. Saw Pearl, loved it. Black Phone, Smile, I thought was going to be stupid. It turned out to be good. Halloween Ends is divisive. I actually kind of dug it.
Hmm.
And Barbarian was really good. So, and of course, I'm waiting for Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for that, and I'm waiting for Violent Nights.
Hmm. I avoid the new ones, unless somebody I know really wants me to see them. I just can't get into horror these days. They're just not fun anymore, in my opinion. I don't like the slow burn. I want everything to be fast paced and just fun.
I love a slow burn because it allows the characters to develop. You know,
Well, it could happen. It could be like a coexistence thing where the characters are developing in 2-3 minutes, right? And then a minute after that, that's when tension starts to build, and then something scary happens.
I'll show you something fucked up. Just a minute. One
Okay.
that you'll probably like. This would be right up your alley. It's a newer movie, but it didn't play in our theaters. It's Canadian,
Hmm.
but holy shit! I saw it on the rack and it just jumped out at me, and I asked the clerk about it, and she said this is the third copy they've had in has been selling. And I
Hmm.
got out to my car and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I said I'm going to take a chance on this movie. I'm sure glad I did. It's a horror comedy.
Hmm. Dead dicks.
Dead Dicks. Now
Oh
it's a
man,
play on word, Dick
so
meaning
that's
Richard.
it's a nice cover. I like that.
Now, what it's about, now I've interviewed one person from it already. What it's about is this woman working at this bar. She gets a phone call from her brother, and she is worried because her brother is dealing with depression and he's suicidal. The film opens up. with him sitting in a chair, and he puts a bag over his head and suffocates himself to death.
Mhm.
And the camera stays on him, and then somebody walks by.
Mhm.
You don't see who this person is. Well, she gets this phone call and she frantically tries to call him, no answer. She tells her coworker, says, I got to go check on my brother. She dashes to his apartment, gets up there, gets inside, can't find him. She calls his name, can't find him.
Mhm.
She's looking around. She opens the closet door, and there he's hanging. And she breaks down, breaks down. Then all of a sudden, her brother comes into
Yeah.
view behind her eating cereal and says her name. And she's like, what the hell? There's something in that apartment that keeps him coming back. And
Mhm.
he called her because he needs her to witness it or videotape it or something. Because he said, by the way, part of the humor in it,
Mhm.
there's about a ton of his bodies around that apartment, and he keeps coming back.
Yeah.
And
It sounds like a trauma movie, but it's not, you
it's
know?
pretty funny. There's one point he he already he's the one body in the tub.
Yeah.
He had electrocuted himself with the toaster. He
Yeah.
asks his sister, he says, will this thing still work?
Yeah.
So I would recommend you check this out. It's pretty screwed up.
Okay.
And but I'm glad I did. I interviewed her bartender coworker from it, but
Right.
um it played at one of the film festivals here. So this just kind of jumped out at me, you know. So I was like, okay, I'm open to
Mhm.
something different like that. It was pretty screwed up, which is probably why I'm looking forward to seeing Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. That's what happens when something comes into public domain. Somebody makes a slasher film out of it. Or Violent Nights. Santa fighting people in a home invasion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of that stuff I kind of dig. I get a kick out of it.
Oh yeah. I mean, but
Yeah.
I loved my trauma, you know. I've talked to, a couple people from the trauma movies, like Bill Whedon, you've talked to him. Um Mark Torgel, you've talked to him. A couple people who are actually ashamed to have been in some trauma movies I've talked to as well.
Like who?
Patricia Tallman, who played Barbara in the Night of the Living Dead remake from 1990. She was in God, what was that movie called? I just interviewed somebody from it recently by accident. I can't remember what it was called. It was a teen sex comedy they made, right? And
Hmm.
she just didn't like the kind of male patriarchy humor that was on set, And she's no prude, but she just wasn't comfortable making that movie.
Okay. Okay. Have you ever had Lloyd Kaufman?
No, I know Nasty Neil on Without Your Head. He's had him on multiple times because Neil's got that kind of cachet because he hosts panels at conventions, which I want to do, you know, but I haven't been able to get Lloyd. No,
You know, it's funny. I wasn't planning to host a panel,
yeah,
but I ended up co-hosting a panel at Horrorama because they were doing a Canadian horror panel with Lisa, Leslie, Lynn, and Sean.
mm,
And the guy that was supposed to do it was coming by and he was meeting them because they were all on that long stretch. And he come down to Lisa and he's got talking to her about her movies, and he said, I know that a lot of people love Class of 1984, but he said, I haven't seen it in years, and I hate to disappoint people who want to hear about your role in the movie. And Lisa turns and says, "Then you want this guy?"
Yeah.
And he asked if I would ask the class of 1984 comments or questions, and I said, "Sure."
Yeah.
I wish somebody had videoed it. There's
Yeah.
pictures of me sitting up there. I wish somebody had videoed it because the reaction that because I knew the answers to what I was going to ask, but I wanted to ask questions that would get people reacting. So
Mhm.
I asked her 3 questions regarding class of 1984 that I knew the answers would really get people like, and it did,
Mhm.
And I wish somebody had a film that. Maybe somebody did, and I didn't see it, but I'm not seeing anything. But and yeah, I remember you asked me if I was nervous, but really no. I just went in and introduced myself when the time came, and the other guy asked questions to Lynn and Sean and Leslie about curtains and deadly eyes and happy birthday to me and funeral home and stuff like that. And I dealt with class of 1984, and you know, I was a filling co-host for just that
Mhm.
segment, but I haven't done a solo panel. Now, would I know Andrew had said to me one time, he goes, you realize you'd have to talk in front of people, but I'm like, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm okay. I can do it, but
Yeah.
I
No,
got,
I came very close to doing it last year. These con promoters I know, they were looking for somebody to host a Tom Sizemore panel. I don't even like Tom Sizemore because he hits women. I'm turned off by that. But I said, okay, I'll do it. But then my mom had surgery that week, and I was like, yes, I don't get to do it. And strangely enough, I got Gina Shock booked for their convention next year, which we're going so over in time here, Greg. I want to tell my Gina Shock story.
go ahead.
Okay, yeah, but long story short, hopefully I'll get to host panels in the future. But
Hmm.
I'm glad you finally got a taste of it.
It
Okay.
wasn't even something planned. It was just a situation where the
Mhm.
guy knew people want to hear about class of 1984, and
Right.
I was assisting Lisa at her table, and Lisa recommended me. It wasn't a long time. I'd say if I was 5 minutes doing
Mhm.
that, that was about it, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
So in 2017 and 2018, I reached out to Jane Weedland from the Go Go's.
Hmm.
She's a member of the kink and fetish community. I'm a member of the kink and fetish community. I thought we would have a great
Oh,
conversation. Yeah. And of course, she was Joan of Arc in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. She was the singing telegram lady that gets blown away in Clue. I was walking on air, because she had her email on her website. Well, she turned me down both times, and I found out because she had just got diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and she was going through a difficult period. But she's okay.
Jane?
Jane Weedland, yeah,
Okay.
she's okay now. She got engaged the other day. I just saw, so I'm happy for her. So in early 2020, Kathy Valentine, the bass player of the Go Go's, came out with a book which I bought the other day, and I'm going to be getting it soon. And I asked her if she would do an interview, and she said sure. She gave me an email address, and I never heard back. And then the pandemic hit like 2 weeks later, and I forgot about it and got busy with other people. Then last October, the Go Go's not only get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Gina Shock announced she came out with a picture book, which I also just bought, and I'm waiting for it to come. She kept the camera with her everywhere they went throughout their history, and
Oh,
it's like
wow.
pictures of them with celebrities like John Belushi and Pee Wee Herman and so forth. And I said, I gotta get Gina Shock on the show because she was always my favorite in interviews. She's so sarcastic, doesn't give a fuck. She'll say anything. I gotta get it. So I was competing with about 100 different outlets when I reached out to her. So then finally in July, her boyfriend is now her manager. Wendell, he finally gets back to me on Facebook and gives me his email address, and we set it up. And it's Monday, August 1st at 4:30 p.m. California time, and he calls me at 2 o'clock and says, "Hey, is there a way we can do this like in 20 minutes from now?" And I said, "Sure, absolutely, right." And he lets me know who he is and stuff, and that I don't have to worry about some dickhead manager or anything like that, blah 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 blah. And he says, "We've listened to a couple of your shows. We like what you do, but please don't ask Gina any sex questions." And I said, "Oh, there's not enough time. I want to talk about the Go-Go's and her career. I'm a genuine fan of the Go-Go's since I was 11 years old." And he told me, he said, "She's a Baltimore girl. She'll tell you if she doesn't like you. She's real. You're gonna love her." Right. 20 minutes later, I get the call from Wendell, and Wendell says, "Here's Gina," and I hear that Baltimore accent. "Hi, Tommy. This is Gina Shock," and the 11-year-old in me comes out to play. "Hey, Gina, welcome to the show. How are you today?" And we went into it, and we had a blast. And 40 minutes in, we talk about this band she had after the Go-Go's broke up called House of Shock, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she she, she forgot the name of Jimmy Iovine's record company, which is Interscope Records, and even I forgot the name, right? So she started cursing up a storm for about a minute and a half. Fuck, shit, damn it. What's that fucking record company's name? Tommy, help me out, you little shit. And I looked it up, and I was laughing my ass off because she's hilarious. And I said Interscope Records, and she was like, "That's it, Interscope Records." "Tommy, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to curse you out, hun. Could you please edit that later?" And I said, "That was the best part of the interview." And she was like, "Yeah, I know, but please edit that." And then after the interview was over, Wendell emailed me and said, "Gina never walks away from an interview saying that guy knows his shit. He's awesome. So Gina liked you a lot." And I was like, oh, I was crying for days, and I haven't stopped. I think about it at least once a day. And Wendell came to me saying, "Hey, you know any cons that we could book Gina at, because she's at ChillerCon this month in October, and she wants to do more." So I suggested David Marina, who I just mentioned, that wanted me for the Tom Sizemore panel. I mentioned the Hollywood show in Burbank, which she's going to be at next weekend, and she's booked at two of those conventions because of me, and it feels so damn good. She follows me on Instagram. When I post something inappropriate, she's the first one to like it, and God, I'm a friggin' lucky guy, Greg. I really am.
It kind of reminds me of when I first interviewed Ralph Bakshi.
Yeah.
I reached out to him when he was I think he was crowdfunding or something to do with the last days of Coney Island,
Hmm.
and he agreed to an interview, and the project was falling through, and he
Yeah.
canceled. And I was saddened by that because I love Fritz the cat.
Hmm.
And anyway, what had happened was towards the end of the year, I got thinking, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to reach out to him for the film's anniversary the following year.
Hmm.
And I did. And he was another one that was very reluctant to come on,
Yeah.
but I got him on, not once, but twice. But I got him on. And I remember at the end of the interview, he said he's done a lot of interviews, been interviewed by a lot of people, but he said this was one of the best interviews he'd ever done. And he
Hmm.
said, you asked, I remember his words, he said, you asked the right questions, good
Oh,
questions, then the right questions.
yeah.
Because I knew what to ask him, I knew the details, and I could tell he enjoyed it. I wanted to get him on a third time, but I can't get him to respond, so I'm just kind of leaving him be.
Hmm.
But it's always nice to have somebody reach out and say, "Yeah, you did a great job with me," or
Hmm.
they'll say something like that. And more recently, I mean, you connected me with Fannin and Bliss from Don't Go Into the Woods,
Right.
which is a film I saw recently, and I thought this movie's dog shit, and it just kind of stuck with me of how absurd the movie was. I ended up
Yeah.
getting the Blu-ray because it's like this is one of those movies like The Room. You laugh at it.
Mhm.
And I remember saying to you, I don't know what I would say. The movie's so awful.
Yeah.
I ended up having them both on,
Yeah.
and I
They
remember
liked they liked you. They told me they liked you.
well, you know something,
Mhm.
I got that movie on Blu-ray,
Mhm.
and I can kind of laugh at it. I'm like, okay, you know what? I can actually enjoy this for fun. But I remember Cecilia sent me an email,
Mhm.
and she said, you know what? It's rare that we ever get asked about what the secret is to a successful marriage because they've been married since before that movie.
Yeah.
And they appreciated being asked that. And I was like, they loved hearing that. And I loved, I'm glad I asked them that, you know?
I asked Charlie Burl and Mitzi McCall that same question. I don't know if they appreciated it, but they loved the interview. Mitzi called me back after we were done. If you don't know who they were the husband and wife comedy team that went on the Ed Sullivan Show after the Beatles, and
Okay.
they completely bombed that night. And they had a funny story about meeting John Lennon backstage. If you go listen to it, it's pretty damn funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever had anybody that I'm pretty sure you have. We might even talked about it when I was on your show where you were set to do an interview and you end up have cancel it because of a person's attitude?
A couple times, yeah. The most recent one that comes to mind back in February, I wanted to interview Robert Shields, who was one half of a comedy team, Shields and Yarnell. They 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 were robots. That was their act. They were just, oh my God, talented people, but they were their own worst enemies. You know, their marriage eventually dissolved, and it was pretty bad, but they were so talented. Go on YouTube if you don't know who they are. Um, yeah, Laureen Yarnell, she was Dodge Matrix in Spaceballs. You know, Joan Rivers did the voice.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, she's dead now, unfortunately. Both of them are, of course. But Robert, yeah, he gave me an attitude. And I actually know another comedian who has a podcast who's known Robert for 50 years. And he got the same thing from him just like 2 days ago. And we think, you know, he may have mental illness. He may be a drug addict. I don't know. But it was uncalled for what he said to me, what he said to him. You know, that kind of story, you know, breaks my heart because I did research. You know, I love his work. You know, he was the mime in The Conversation, you know, the Francis Coppola movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'd love to get somebody from that movie. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a heartbreaker. Yeah. But I've had a lot of people say yes, and then they canceled, and I found out later they were Scientologists because I had mentioned sci-fi at the beginning. You know, about 10 people there. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why they cancel if who
Mhm.
says Scientology has to be part of the interview?
Yeah.
I'm
You know.
Christian, but it doesn't have to be part of the conversation,
Yeah.
yet. But I don't know. So what do you have coming up that you want that you can
Hmm.
talk about?
I got some great guests coming up to wrap up Halloween October. You know, every October, all month long, I got great horror guests coming up. I got like Anne Marie Howard, who played Corrine in John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness.
Okay.
I've got Martin Casella. He was the guy in Poltergeist whose face melted off. You
I
know,
haven't gotten anybody from Poltergeist yet. I'll have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, he seems pretty willing to do interviews. He's done a bunch of them I found on YouTube.
Okay.
Um, Michelle Pfeiffer's sister Dee Dee, who played Amaretto in Vamp, that was a hard one to get. I told you about it privately.
Mm-hmm.
I had that problem with that publicist a couple of years ago. She's not with them anymore, thank God.
Mm-hmm.
I got her coming on.
How did
The
you reach out to her?
Oh, she has a new publicist that she mentioned on Instagram, who happened to be a stand-up comedian, and so
Because Scotty got her as well. I should probably reach out if you guys are having some luck.
I know he got her through the old publicist because they mentioned him during the interview. So that was like earlier this year, but she's not with him anymore.
Okay.
Um, I got Beatrice Bupley coming back on for the third time. She's Amanda Kruger in Nightmare on Elm Street 5.
I just reached out to her. I haven't heard back though.
You will.
Uh-huh.
We recorded it last week. I'm going to drop it on Halloween.
Okay.
Um, let's see. I've got a bunch of people. I got the girl who was the babysitter in Candyman. She's coming on tomorrow. Um, yeah, I got some good ones coming, and I got a couple that I did earlier in the month that I'll be dropping in November, including the one I did today. Um, I interviewed Wendy Gerard, who was in Annie Hall, the scene where Woody Allen and Diane Keaton are doing cocaine and Woody sneezes. She's the other woman there with the husband. Yeah, I did a 2 hour and 35-minute interview with her today. And
Okay.
Lou Antonio from Cool Hand Luke, we did it first week of October. I'm going to drop it November 1st. He was great. He was really funny.
Okay. Okay. And you mentioned this before too. I have no issues going through management
Hmm.
to get interviews, but one thing I don't like
Hmm.
is and this happened to me recently.
Hmm.
I think it was Hannah Barefoot who I got through Nancy McLaughlin. But
Hmm.
all of a sudden, I wanted to get her on with Nancy, and she says I got to go through her management, and I'm like, you know who I am,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like, okay, I'm backing off, you know. Um, I got no issues dealing with management,
Hmm.
but I also realize too that sometimes you get jerked around.
Yeah.
Talk about those experiences.
Well, one that stands out the most and oh my God, I have really given this guy a fuck you, like before and since.
Hmm.
So I wanted to interview Linda Miller from King Kong Escapes. I didn't get to meet her that time at Monster Palooza
Hmm.
because my friend wanted to leave by that point. So I didn't get to meet her. I got to meet her last year though.
Hmm.
So I go to her fan page and message her. This manager, his name is Jim. Okay, gets back to me. He says, send me an episode of your podcast. I do. Everything's great. We schedule it. The interview went great. She liked me a lot. She wanted to stay connected with me. Everything was great. Um, he says to me afterwards, "Can you send me the interview?" And I said, "Sure." Never heard back from him, nor did I really need to. So went about my day.
Hmm.
Um, so then Living Dead weekend is about to approach for the George Romero movies. They have it every year in Pennsylvania at the mall where Dawn of the Dead was, and then they have another one where the Night of the Living Dead graveyard site was. And so I reached out to a couple of Romero people, and I had interviewed quite a number of Romero people before that, and not a single one of them said to me, "Contact my manager." Right. So then let's see. At first, I talked to Christine Romero, who was George's second wife before Suzanne,
Hmm.
and that went great. And then I reached out to three other people, and they all said contact my manager, which I thought was weird. Right? Manager's name was Jim, and I did not connect it to the Jim that I had dealt with Linda. Right?
Hmm.
So I sent this guy a couple emails, and a month went by, and then I finally heard from him, and he sent me a message saying, "Hey Tommy, this is Jim, Linda's manager. I also handle the Romero people. I know that you did that interview with Christine, and I'm highly offended that you didn't go through proper channels. And I really don't like the way that your podcast sounds. It sounds like it was recorded, in a toilet or something like that along those lines. I've heard a couple of people say that before about me, by the way. And he said, if you change your, if you, get a new sound system, I'll get you my clients, but your podcast provides no value for my clients at this time. And so I let him have it, and his response was, just stay away from my clients. And that was that. And I've had maybe like 10 more since then, but not those three that I reached out to. Fuck that. I don't need that. I'm sure he found out about Christine, and then he said to, a bunch of people, don't give this guy an interview. But the ones I've had since, they probably forgot about it. So that's why I got those ones. So,
You know what? It's funny because it was Ted
uh,
White that connected me with Kane Hodder and
right,
Judy Aronson, neither of which I had on. And
right.
whenever that whole debacle with Judy happened,
Mhm.
Debbie Sue Voorhees played up this you never call them blah 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 blah. He said, always go through management. Well,
Yeah.
and I like it how they ignore the fact that it was Ted White that gave me the contact.
Hmm.
I think that's important. Anyway, they play that. So here's my question for Debbie Sue Voorhees.
Hmm.
Do I go through management to get Lisa Langlois on my show? Do I go through management to get Nancy McLaughlin on my show?
Yeah.
I mean, they are friends of mine, but am I supposed
Hmm.
to do that?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and I remember Jason Bradford played this with me too. That because I told him, I said Nancy McLaughlin, I asked her a lot, and he goes, well, if I need to talk to her, I'll go through her management. And I'm thinking to myself, she may contact you directly if you don't shut your fucking mouth about me behind my
Mhm.
back.
Yeah.
Because she told me if I needed her assistant, she would to let her know.
Hmm.
You know, but and I like it. The management system applies to us, doesn't apply to them. And I guarantee you, Debbie Sue does not go through management to contact all these people. I guarantee it.
Oh, yeah.
You think
I'm
she
sure.
goes through Ron Sloan's management to contact him? No, she don't.
No,
Nope.
probably not.
And I guarantee you, anybody that she had of a name from 13 Fanboy, whether it be Tracy Savage, Judy Aronson, Larpa, she don't contact their fucking management. Goes right direct to them. But again, I'm not part of the clique. You know, I
Yeah.
like it when people try to make me feel like I'm unvaluable to society.
Hmm.
You know, I don't, you know what? To each their own, to each their own. But but I'll tell you one thing. I've if somebody gives me a number,
Hmm.
I'll give a call. I had the wrestler Larry Zabisco on the show back in I think it was March.
Hmm.
I was given his number. I called him. He went on the show. We had a nice interview. I mean, I think it would have been weird if Larry Zabisco had said, I'm Larry's cousin. You called me 20 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, Larry Zabisco's not going there.
Yeah.
But but still, if somebody gives me a number and I'm taking in confidence that they mean give them a call.
Hmm.
And by the way, that wasn't Ted White's fault. Ted
Yeah.
White tried to do something very, very nice,
Yeah.
you know, but nonetheless, some people react differently.
Right.
Yeah. And I've had twice at cons. This is unusual. I've gotten phone numbers twice at cons.
Right.
First was Lynn Lowry, who I love Lynn Laurie. You get a chance to meet her, she's worth it. She's a hugger,
Yeah,
and she's
she's a great
lovely.
interview.
I love Lynn, and sh she gave me her number and email right there at the con, which I thought was unique.
Hmm.
But you know what? I've never called her. Never called her. I messaged her, I emailed her, whatever. I mean, I hate to break it, Debbie Sue. I've got lots of these numbers. They're not all accusing me of harassment. She was okay.
Yeah,
Um, Another one I got was Lisa Loring, who was the original Wednesday Addams.
I met her once.
Here's the thing. She gave me her number,
Hmm.
but she told me at the con she didn't have Zoom, and I have a hard time dealing when people don't have the Zoom,
Hmm.
because I'm not going to do it at the station when I can
Well,
do it here.
well,
Huh?
can't you send her the link like you send me the link tonight?
Well, I would like to think so.
Yeah.
But with Lisa Loring though, she gave me her number, and I never contacted her either. I texted her, never heard back. I gave her a couple calls and no answer. I did get her voice message, but I left it at that. So I don't know. I'm like, why give me your number if you're not but anyway, she was fun to meet. She was lovely to meet.
Hmm.
Maybe she's busy with something or whatever, but that normally doesn't happen. But when it does, it's great. But I'm going to be at Frightmare in the Falls. I'm hoping to make a few more connections there.
Awesome.
Yeah, but yeah, I think we covered almost everything.
I think so. I mean, I said, I do 2 hours, but you know what? I've had a blast, Greg, and I really appreciate you having me on finally.
Well,
I
how
mean,
many hours is this now?
it's like 3 hours and something, but who's counting?
Oh,
This was a lot.
gee, you
Yeah.
mean to tell me you didn't pass Paul M. Sampson? I was, I'm surprised he went. I mean, he went past Craig Muckler, and I didn't think anybody would go past Craig Muckler.
Now, I let Paul have the glory. I'm not going to go over.
No, well, I'm going to tell you, my ass was some sore sitting after that, but
Why do you think I'm leaning on my side now? Because about
oh, I
two and a
thought
half
you had
hours
to
in.
break wind, and you did
No,
what to cut it okay.
no,
Yeah, that's not it.
no, no,
No, no,
no.
yeah, okay. But I mean, I'm glad that we're connected, and
Yeah,
we're able to do this. And I appreciate when you throw people my way,
I
and
appreciate it too.
yeah, and I'm slowly going through that list and reaching out to people and making the connections and seeing what sticks and what doesn't.
Hmm.
But nonetheless, I can't have let you go yet because I want to hear some jokes.
Okay, okay. I got some ready for you.
Go for it. Give me some jokes.
Why is drinking cheap beer like going down on your sister?
Okay, why?
It's the same taste, but it's still not right.
Got any more?
What did the cheerleader say after she gave a blowjob?
Oh, I
Give
know
up?
her. Huh?
Give up?
Give up.
No.
Yeah.
Way to go, team. Let's see what else. What else? Let me see. Trying to think. This one's not that dirty. What did the naked man say to the elephant? Or what did the elephant say to the naked man?
How do you breathe through that thing? I heard this one before.
Exactly. Exactly.
Did you ever hear about the one where about the blonde that got her head stuck in the steering wheel?
I probably did.
Yeah, the blonde got her head stuck in the steering wheel because she was trying to blow the horn.
Oh, that makes me think of National Lampoon's Vacation.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Have you seen any movies at the theater this year that you like?
Uh, Not that I liked. I saw Clerks 3, and it made me sad because it was like a soap opera, and it reminded me of arguments I had with people after I came back from my accident because, spoiler alert, Randall has a heart attack in this movie and he wants to live life to the fullest, just like I did after I had my accident. So
Hmm.
there were some laughs, but I couldn't enjoy the movie. It was just
We
too
didn't get
heart
it.
wrenching. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's sad. It really is. Let's see if I see anything else. Um, I probably did. I just can't think. Oh, the Elvis movie I liked a lot. That was good.
That wasn't bad. Not bad.
Hmm.
No, that wasn't bad. Yeah, I usually try to go to a movie a week when I can, you know. I still
Hmm.
like going to the movies. Especially love it in Toronto. You know, I saw Jason Lives in Toronto at a theater and it was had that Rocky Horror kind of vibe.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that was fun. But I like big cities like Toronto to go to movies because you can see revivals. Whereas in a small town like this, you don't get them very often. I love going to see older movies at the theater whenever the time is right. I
Right.
remember a trip to Toronto. It was around Christmas time. I attended a double billing of White and Black Christmas, which was an
Oh my
interesting
God,
little double billing.
that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, White Christmas had some people at it, but Black Christmas was packed. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So, yeah. So, no, this has been great. Next year I'll put you on my 2023 roster and have you back. And
Absolutely.
yeah, you know, I got no issues with that. Like, we're good, and love hearing the stuff you're doing. And yeah, this has been great. This has
Thank
been
you, Greg.
great. Yeah,
I've really enjoyed this. Do you want me to do a plug for your show?
why not? Why not?
Okay. Hey, dudes, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac, the host of Splat From the Past, and you are listening to Greg the Python Hyena Gilbert on Python's Paradise. Totally radical.
Thanks, Tommy. We're both night owls. It's like 5:30 in the morning here, but I don't have to work today,
One
so
117 right now over here.
there you go. Like you're 4 hours behind, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I might settle down here. I got some movies I can watch. I might watch something here, and that's
Yeah,
what I
I'm
might
I'm
do.
I'm gonna go make a sandwich and listen to something, maybe some music, maybe a podcast, and then just go to sleep. I got my first interview at 11 a.m. and then my second at 12 p.m. And then I got to email people for the following week. So,
Yeah, how many people do you email a day?
well, I used to do it every day, but now I just do it on Mondays, unless somebody told me to get back to them a certain day. So tomorrow, I maybe got like maybe 12 people at least, and I'll probably hear from at least four or five of those people normally,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes more. We shall see. I got a couple people pending who told me to reach out to them tomorrow. That's been on the list for a while, so we shall see.
I usually try to reach out to a couple people a day when I can, and
Hmm.
because I don't want to bombard myself too much because I got to make sure that I could schedule right with work, and plus I need to know ahead of time, like with work, I am hoping that I know my schedule
Mhm,
because that helps in booking the guest.
mhm.
Yeah. So yeah.
Well,
But
Greg, this has been just a total blast. Thank you,
hmm
sir.
oh, no problem, man. No, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm wearing a Suspiria shirt. I got this at Horrorama.
Oh, I got the 1966 Batman characters on my shirt. I don't know if you can see it. Can you a little
I
bit?
can. I gotta admit, I
Yeah.
did not like that Batman movie. It had one of the dumbest things I ever seen in a movie in it.
Hmm.
The scene where they're underwater and there's torpedo is coming at
Oh
them,
yeah. Oh yeah.
and then it cuts, and then it cuts them again. I thought this was so fucking dumb. Batman says, "Good thing that whale gave us his life for us." I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Hmm. My dad saw that movie in the theater with all my uncles and my aunt. She was like 20 and they were like,
Mhm.
5 to like, 18, 17, 18 at that point. So the whole family went, and that movie's always been a term of endearment for me.
Mhm.
Um, I love the movie though. I love that campiness, and I've talked to Burt Ward. He's an interesting guy.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay. I should reach out to him at some point.
yeah,
But anyway, yeah, it was wonderful having you on tonight, and yeah, we'll keep in touch.
of course.
Yep, absolutely. Well, you have yourself a good day. Get some sleep, and I'm gonna settle down here with Skittles, who's got his back to me because I embarrassed him on here tonight. I embarrassed him.
Yes. You
Yeah.
have a great night, Greg, and I'll talk to you on Facebook. And yep, don't work too hard when you get back to the hospital, okay?
Oh, I got no choice but to work hard. I went in there the other night and they asked me to do a unit in there, and apparently the people the last couple of days were not doing their work in there, so there's a whole list of complaints,
Yeah,
and so I had a hell of a night trying to get that stuff caught up. Luckily there was another worker that came to help me. You see, when somebody's not doing their job, it affects other people.
right.
When you're working in a hospital environment, you gotta be on your game. So when somebody's not doing their work, it comes on to the next person, makes it a little more difficult, puts you under pressure. But I do work with some really good people there, and
Mhm.
so I won't complain too much about that. I generally like going to work, so yeah. But this is one of those few nights I actually got off, so I'm very fortunate.
That's awesome.
Anyway, you have
All right.
yourself a great night,
You too,
and
Greg.
we'll be talking to you.
All right. Talk to you soon. Bye
All
bye.
right, take care.
Take care.